Chapter 61. Returning to the cave abode, his divine sense entered the space of the spirit pearl and harvested all the ripe soul-gathering pill ingredients. The last time he asked seventh uncle to refine soul-gathering pills, he obtained more than 700 pills. After handing in 500 pills, he still had more than 200 pills left. With so many soul-gathering pills, it was enough for him to cultivate for 1 or 2 years. There were still a few hundred sets of ingredients stored in the space. Even if he cultivated to the peak stage of qi refinement, he wouldn't need so many. Planting too many soul-gathering pill ingredients would be meaningless. Wang Daoyuan planted the newly bought golden thread spirit jujube, fiery sunwood, and a few spirit herb seeds that he got when he bought the lotus seeds. As for the 5 lotus seeds, he didn't dare to throw them directly into the fish pond. Those Qing River carps were all gluttons and would eat whatever they caught. If he threw the lotus seeds in, they would become food for the Qing River carps. He could only dig a 3-meter-wide puddle in the newly cleared space and plant the lotus seeds in the puddle. He wasn't worried about whether it was black jade lotus or not. As long as it could germinate, even if it was only black water lotus, the lotus roots could be sold to his restaurant. The restaurant would have one more ingredient. After packing up, Wang Daoyuan changed into a black robe, a veil and a bamboo hat. He used the invisibility spell and left the Pill Seal Pavilion, revealing himself in a secluded place. He returned to the Pill Seal Pavilion and bought some detoxification and healing pills, as well as 50 kilograms of spirit ink. These spirit ink were all made from Tier 1 cinnabar. The Wang family had a Tier 1 superior grade cinnabar mine, so they didn't lack Tier 1 spirit ink. Moreover, this cinnabar mine would occasionally produce some impure Tier 2 inferior grade cinnabar. After refining, it could be made into Tier 2 spirit ink. Thus, the Wang family had plenty of spirit ink. Other than for personal use, they could also sell it in large quantities. After leaving the Pill Seal Pavilion, he went straight to the Divine Weapon Pavilion and chose a Tier 1 superior grade talisman pen. It wouldn't be strange if he encountered any trouble on this trip to the Heaven/Mountain Range. It was better to be prepared. Although he still had more than 400 spirit talismans, he couldn't say when he would run out. With the talisman pen and spirit ink, he could refine spirit talismans in his free time. After everything was ready, Wang Daoyuan took the family's spirit ship and headed northeast along the stream. From Clear Glass City to the upper reaches of Clear Stream, he could only take a spirit ship. It wasn't that the land route was difficult to travel, but after leaving Clear Glass City, all the way to the outskirts of the Heavenly/Mountain Range, the south bank of Clear Stream was basically the Liang clan's territory, and 1,000 miles of the north bank was also controlled by the Liang clan, not allowing people from opposing clans to pass through. The Liang family's territory surrounded Clear Glass City from the east, north, and west. They wanted to isolate the Wang, Yang, and Meng families. Fortunately, the Wang and Meng families both had waterways that led to Qingli City. The Liang family was not bold enough to block off the waterways. After all, there were many mines in Huiyan Mountain, and the ores they mined were all transported by Qingli River's waterway. The various powers in Qingli Prefecture also mainly relied on the waterway to transport their goods. If the Liang family dared to seal the waterway, the elders of the Netherworld sect would skin the Liang family alive. The Yang family was also located on the southern bank of the Clear Stream. Most of their territory was only a few dozen kilometers away from the Clear Stream, but there was only one territory on the bank of the Clear Stream that was close to the periphery of the Sky/Mountain Range. Demonic beasts ran amok there, and even rank 2 demonic beasts frequently appeared. Even Foundation establishment cultivators could not protect that place. It simply did not have the conditions to build a pier. Because the Yang and Liang families did not get along, the Liang family prohibited the Yang family from using the pier along the Clear Stream. This caused the Yang family to transport large quantities of goods by land, severely affecting the Yang family's development. However, the Liang family also did not have many years left. The Liang family's ancestor Liang was already over 400 years old. In less than 100 years he would definitely die. And the rest of the Liang family did not have any peerlessly talented people. It would be very difficult for them to give birth to another Zifu realm cultivator. And the Yang family's ancestor Yang Yong was only over 350 years old. He still had over 100 years of life left. When Liang passed away, the Liang family that had been causing trouble everywhere for several hundred years would definitely be beaten to death. Although Liang was an outsider of the Netherworld sect and could ask the elders of the outsider to help. But those fellows of the outsider faction who would not get up early without benefits would not help for free. If the Liang family asked for help, wouldn't they have to pay a huge price? Once or twice was still fine, but after a long time, the Liang family definitely would not be able to hold on. Most likely, before the Wang, Yang and Meng families destroyed them, they would be eaten up by the outsider faction of the Netherworld sect. And the Liang family's territory was surrounded by the three families. If they did not eat up one of the three families, they would have no place to expand at all. It would also be very difficult for the Liang family's strength to improve. Therefore, the Wang, Yang and Meng families had always been in a defensive state. As long as they could hold off the Liang family for another 100 years, the Liang family would definitely be finished. Wang Daoyuan sat on the spirit ship. Looking at the beautiful mountains and rivers on both sides, he felt a surge of anger in his heart. This was all the Wang family's territory. For 300 years, the Liang family had forcefully seized it and nibbled away the essence of the land. There were many spirit veins, spirit fields and mines on both sides of the clear stream. All of them benefited the Liang family. Fortunately, the spirit ship was empty and very fast. It only took slightly more than 2 days to travel 1,000 miles. It did not make him feel angry for too long. 1,000 miles away from Clear Glass City, the north bank of the clear stream was already the Wang family's territory. There were not many spirit veins in this area, but there were a few mines. Continuing up the clear stream in less than 250 miles, they entered the periphery of the heaven/mountain range. There were many spirit veins and mines there, but demon beasts ran rampant. Itinerant cultivators who were desperate came and went, and it was very difficult to establish a stronghold. The spirit ship traveled another 50 miles and arrived at Clear Stream Village. Wang Daoyuan left the ship and went ashore. Looking at the familiar village, he felt emotional. He could be considered to have returned home in glory. Wang Daoyuan went ashore at the west side of Clear Stream Village. He walked along the small path in the fields towards the village. Under a willow tree by the side of the road, a little boy of 3 or 4 years old was squatting on the ground to pee and play with mud. His body was covered in mud and his face was smeared like a cat. Wang Daoyuan walked closer to take a look. This brat's face was somewhat familiar. He was probably the child of some childhood playmate. The little boy did not notice someone coming over and was playing with the mud happily. Wang Daoyuan walked over and lightly kicked his butt, asking, "Little fellow, what's your name?" The little fellow turned around and saw that the person who asked the question was wearing the clothes of an immortal. He remembered that his parents had warned him not to provoke immortals, and he was so scared that he cried. The child's cries spread. Not far from the village entrance, a dog barked in a deep courtyard. A black dog barked and rushed over. The dog looked even more familiar. It looked exactly the same as Dahe, but it was bigger. Wang Daoyuan called out tentatively, "Dahe." The black dog stopped barking and looked at him. It was stunned for a long time, then walked to his side and sniffed for a long time before recognizing him. It immediately shook its head and wagged its tail, circling around him and rubbing its head against his leg. Wang Daoyuan was a little surprised. It was really Dahe. However, this was not very possible. Even if a normal dog was carefully cared for, it would be difficult for it to live to 20 years old. For a dog like Dahe who was always free, it usually could not live past 12 years old. When he left home, Dahe was already 6 or 7 years old. After 15 years, Dahe was still alive and did not look old at all. Could it be that it had become a spirit beast? Wang Daoyuan carefully examined Dahe's body and found that its physical quality was far better than ordinary dogs. It was equivalent to a human practitioner in the peak of opening meridians. It was only one step away from becoming a first-level spirit beast. No wonder it was still so strong after living for more than 20 years. Compared with human beings, spirit beasts' cultivation progress was slow, but their lifespans were longer. With a little progress in cultivation, their lifespans would be greatly increased. It was normal that Dahe could live until now without showing any signs of aging. At this time, a middle-aged woman came out of the deep courtyard and shouted, "Who bullied my eldest grandson?" When Wang Daoyuan saw the woman, his eyes blurred and he shouted, "Mother." After all, they were mother and son. Even if they had not seen each other for more than 10 years, they were connected by heart. Seeing that Dahe was so close to Wang Daoyuan, she was sure that the immortal in front of her was her son Erwa. She asked, "Are you Erwa?" Wang Daoyuan replied while crying, "Mother, it's me. I'm Erwa." Wang Daoyuan's mother was a mortal of the Yang family. Mortal women in cultivation families generally did not have names, and Wang Daoyuan's mother was no exception. After marrying, she had been called Madame Yang. Madame Yang ran over and hugged her son. She cried and said, "Erwa, you're finally back. You left home when you were 5 years old and you've been away for more than 10 years. I miss you so much." Chapter 62. Wang Daoyuan persuaded Mrs. Wang Yang for a long time before she stopped crying. Erwa, come home with me. Your father always brags about you to the villagers. He will be very happy when you come back. Wang Daoyuan pointed to the crying child and asked, Is this my eldest brother's son? I was wondering why he looked so familiar. He wanted to hug his eldest nephew, but the child was covered in urine and mud. It was really disgusting. He ran his spiritual power and summoned a large amount of water from the clear stream. He washed the child from head to toe. Then he waved his hand to disperse the water on the child's body and dried his clothes. Looking at her grandson who had become clean in an instant, Mrs. Wang Yang didn't dare to recognize him. She was so shocked by her son's means that she couldn't speak. The little brat also opened his mouth in surprise. Wang Daoyuan picked up his eldest nephew and supported his mother as they walked towards the deep courtyard. Dahe followed behind them excitedly. Walking through the gate, he scanned with his divine sense and found that the house was still a 3-section courtyard. It seemed that the family took good care of their parents. When Wang Daoyuan was a child, his family lived in a brick house without walls. It was incomparable with the current 3-section courtyard house. The gatehouse next to the gate was Dahe's nest. With Dahe as the gatehouse, no one dared to enter except for the villagers. Entering the inner courtyard, a middle-aged man in clean and simple clothes was cleaning the courtyard. It was Wang Daoyuan's father, Wang Fu. As soon as he saw an immortal holding his grandson, he hurriedly stepped forward and said, May I know what brings you here? Then he scolded his grandson, Little brat, come down quickly. Mrs. Wang Yang said disdainfully, Old man, your eyesight is really bad. Can't you see who this is? Wang Fu looked carefully for a long time before asking, Is this Erwa? Wang Daoyuan said with a smile, Father, it's me. I'm back. Wang Fu laughed heartily. You're finally back. You've been away from home for 15 years, 1 month and 3 days. You're finally back. A father's love was like a mountain, silent but deep. Although he didn't show it, he clearly remembered how long his son had been away. Hearing Wang Fu's laughter, an 8 or 9-year-old boy ran out from the west wing. This boy was 70 to 80% similar to Wang Daoyuan. He was very big, at least 120 to 30 kilograms. One look and one could tell that he would definitely grow up to be a strong man. Wang Fu introduced, This is your third brother. He hasn't been given a proper name yet. His nickname is Sanhua. She then scolded Sanhua, You've been clamoring to find your second brother all day long. Now that your second brother is back, you don't know how to call people. Sanhua stared at Wang Daoyuan's face for a long time and asked, Are you really my second brother? Wang Daoyuan smiled and replied, Look at my face. Don't you find it familiar? Sanhua scratched his head and said, He does look familiar, but I can't remember where I've seen him before. Madame Wang Yang knocked on her silly son's head and said, Go and look in the mirror. Sanhua ran to the fish tank in the yard and looked at the fish tank. I was wondering why you looked so familiar. It turns out that you look similar to me. Wang Daoyuan asked, Do you believe that I'm your second brother now? Sanhua smiled and said, I believe you. Second brother, you're an immortal now. Is there anything delicious to eat? I can't even fill my stomach at home. Wang Daoyuan was a little surprised. Looking at the house, it didn't look like there was a shortage of food. Why couldn't they have enough to eat? He asked, Father, is our family short of food? Why is Sanhua still hungry? Wang Fu sighed and said, Alas, our family is not short of food, but Sanhua eats too much. Since he was 3 years old, his appetite has been different from ordinary people. Now he can eat 10 jin of food for a meal, but he still says that he's not full. The immortals in the family have come to see him, but they didn't see anything wrong with him. I'm afraid that he'll eat too much, so I don't dare to let him eat. Look at his body. Can he be hungry? Wang Daoyuan used the fire attribute talisman to cook 2 jin of spiritual grains from the space. He asked Sanhua to bring a container to eat. This guy directly brought a basin. He put the spiritual grains into the basin and said, Eat as much as you want. After eating there's still more. I guarantee that you'll be full. Sanhua held the basin and began to eat. The 2 jin of spiritual grains were quickly eaten up. Seeing this, Wang Daoyuan was shocked. 1 jin of spiritual grains was equivalent to 30 jin of ordinary food. If he ate 1 jin, he wouldn't be hungry for 3 days. 2 jin of spiritual grains were eaten up so quickly. It seemed that he wasn't full yet. Wang Daoyuan continued to cook spiritual grains for him in the space. Sanhua ate 5 jin of spiritual grains before patting his belly and saying, I'm finally full. Wang Daoyuan used his divine sense to check his third brother's whole body. He didn't find any problems, but his body absorbed nutrients very quickly. Even the spiritual energy was quickly absorbed. It was very likely that he had a special physique. He said with a smile, "Third brother, do you know how much you've eaten? This 5 gene of spiritual grains is equivalent to 150 gene of food." Wang Yang was frightened and hurriedly asked Wang Daoyuan, "Erwa Sanwa ate so much. Won't he be full?" Wang Daoyuan replied, "Mother, don't worry. This spiritual grain is just better than normal grain. It's only 5 caddies. Third brother can eat 10 caddies of grain without any problems, so 5 caddies of spiritual grain won't make him full. It's just that spiritual grains are not easy to digest. He may not be hungry for a few days." Only then did Wang Yang feel relieved. She turned and went into the kitchen to cook something for Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan hadn't tasted his mother's cooking for many years. He was really a little hungry. However, eating ordinary food was not only not good for him, but also had some disadvantages. So, he took out a few gene of spiritual grains and 2 2-foot-long pseudo-spiritual fish from the space of the spiritual pearl. He gave them to his mother and said, "Mother, eating ordinary food is harmful to my cultivation. It's better to use these things to cook. You can eat them to strengthen your body." Seeing the 2 big fish, the eyes of nephew Gu in his arms lit up. Children were curious and he was no exception. He struggled to get down. Wang Daoyuan put him down and he rushed directly to the 2 big fish. He even held the 2 fish in his arms. The clothes that had just been washed were stained with the smell of fish. Looking at the 2 fish, Sanwa's face was full of regret. He said angrily, "Second brother, you tricked me into eating spiritual grains. When I was full you took out the fish." Wang Daoyuan touched Sanwa's head and said, "Don't worry, there are so many fish that you can't finish them." Hearing this, Sanwa immediately turned from anger to joy. After chatting for a while, a man and a woman walked in from outside. The man looked familiar. He was Wang Daoyuan's eldest brother, Wang Meng. He was a very strong man. Among the 3 brothers, Wang Daoyuan, who had a medium build, was the thinnest. Wang Meng saw an immortal who looked like him and was talking with his father. He guessed, "Is this second brother back?" Wang Daoyuan smiled, "Big brother, we haven't seen each other for more than 10 years. You can still recognize me." "Of course." Wang Meng said proudly, "We are brothers." The sister-in-law's family was in a nearby village. She was also a mortal member of the Wang family, so she was called Wang Wangshi. Wang Wangshi went forward and bowed. Wang Daoyuan said, "You are welcome." Then Wang Wangshi went to the kitchen and took her son away from the big fish. The naughty child quickly ran to Wang Daoyuan to seek protection. Wang Daoyuan called a ball of water and washed the naughty child from head to toe. He smiled and said, "Before I entered the village, I saw nephew Gu playing with the mud at the entrance. I helped him clean, but he got dirty again." Chapter 63. Seeing that her son had been washed clean, Mrs. Wang stopped beating him and went into the kitchen to help cook. Seeing that his mother had stopped beating him, the naughty boy became arrogant again. Wang Meng glared at him and he ran back to the east wing. The 4 of them chatted about their daily lives. Unknowingly, the meal was ready. The family gathered around the table to eat, and the atmosphere was harmonious. Since Wang Daoyuan embarked on the path of cultivation at the age of 5, the family had never gathered together for a meal like today. Everyone had a good time eating. Only Sanwa was sulking. Looking at the delicious braised fish and fish soup, he had no appetite at all. For a foodie, this was the greatest torture. Everyone ate and drank to their fill. After eating food rich in spiritual energy, they felt refreshed and felt as if they were a few years younger. Only Sanwa still had a miserable expression. Since they had a dog at home, the leftovers were naturally given to Dahe. Wang Fu called Dahe, and it immediately rushed into the inner courtyard from the kennel. The dog's nose was very sensitive, and it had already smelled the fragrance of the spiritual grains and pseudo-spirit fish. However, as an excellent watchdog, it could never steal food without its master's permission, so it had to lie in the kennel and drool. Now that it heard its master's call, it couldn't hold back and rushed over to eat something good to improve its life. Mrs. Wang Yang poured the fish bones for Dahe to eat. Dahe deserved to be a spirit beast that was about to become a first-level spirit beast. The pseudo-spirit fish could be regarded as a fish that had embarked on the path of cultivation. Its bones were harder than those of ordinary fish, but they were directly crushed by Dahe's sharp teeth. The bones of the 2 big fish and some fish soup were eaten clean in a dozen breaths of time. Dahe's eyes began to stare at the leftover spiritual grains again. Mrs. Wang Yang was used to being thrifty, so she was reluctant to feed it such good things. Looking at its pitiful look, Wang Daoyuan took out a spirit-gathering pill. Dahei looked at the spirit-gathering pill with its eyes wide open. The instinctive reaction of animals was much more sensitive than that of humans. Although Dahei's intelligence was only a little higher than that of ordinary dogs, when it saw the spirit-gathering pill, it instinctively felt that it would be of great use to it. Wang Daoyuan fed the spirit-gathering pill to Dahei. Dahei immediately swallowed the spirit-gathering pill and lay aside as if waiting for something. After waiting for a quarter of an hour, her mother and sister-in-law had cleaned up the pots and pans, but Dahei still had no reaction at all. Yangming mumbled to himself, Big Black was only a step away from becoming a rank 1 spirit beast. The spirit-gathering pill was a pill used by Qi refinement cultivators to increase their cultivation level. It was useful for late-stage Qi refinement cultivators. However, Blackie's cultivation level was not as good as a first-stage Qi refinement cultivator. There should be some sort of reaction after consuming such a spirit-gathering pill. After waiting for an hour, Dahei finally reacted. It began to get excited and ran around the yard. Wang Daoyuan finally understood that he had been thinking too highly of himself. Human cultivators revolved their cultivation methods and refined spiritual pills. Naturally, they would have a clear reaction as soon as the spiritual pill entered their stomach. Dahei was just an ordinary dog that had mutated. It didn't know how to cultivate at all, so it could only digest and absorb the spirit-gathering pill. Dahei became more and more uneasy. It rushed out of the house and ran towards the clear stream. Wang Daoyuan's cultivation level was at the 7th level of Qi refinement. Naturally, he would not be left behind by Dahei, who had not yet become a spirit beast, and he also ran out. Dahei ran along the river bank, consuming too much energy in its body. However, the situation was still within Wang Daoyuan's expectations. After all, Dahei was a quasi-spirit beast, and its body was much stronger than that of ordinary cultivators at the early stage of Qi refinement. A spirit-gathering pill would not cause any harm to it. After running for a while, Dahei's body began to emit white smoke. It seemed to be very hot. It stretched out its tongue and panted as it ran. In the end, it couldn't stand the heat and directly jumped into the clear stream. After struggling for an hour, Dahei's spiritual power fluctuations began to weaken, but it still did not succeed in breaking through. If it continued like this, it would be impossible for it to become a rank 1 spirit beast. Wang Daoyuan threw another spirit-gathering pill over. Although Dahei was hot all over, it still swallowed the spirit-gathering pill. Another hour passed, and Dahei's spiritual power fluctuations, which had gradually weakened, became stronger again. At this time, some demonic beasts in the water sensed the spiritual power and came over to join in the fun. The life of demonic beasts was much harder than that of humans. They could only improve their cultivation by instinct or by swallowing spiritual objects. When they sensed the spiritual power fluctuations, they all came forward, trying to eat Dahei to increase their cultivation. Of course, those who could take a fancy to Dahei's spiritual power were not powerful. There were only a few demonic beasts of lower rank 1, and the others were not ranked. Wang Daoyuan naturally would not let the demonic beasts have their way, so he directly used the water dragon skill. The dragon clan was the king of all aquatic demonic beasts, and the water dragon skill carried a trace of dragon power. As soon as the water dragon came out, the demonic beasts that were not ranked were so scared that they did not dare to move, and the ranked ones hurriedly ran away. His main purpose was to protect Dahei, so he was too lazy to chase after them. He only took down a crocodile of lower rank 1, and with a swing of his dragon tail, the crocodile was pulled ashore. The crocodile was out of the water, but its ferocity did not decrease. It tried to attack Wang Daoyuan, but it was knocked out by a kick. There were only hundreds of fainted fishes, shrimps, and crabs around Dahei, all of which were not ranked. Wang Daoyuan manipulated the water dragon to roll up a big wave, and all these fishes, shrimps, and crabs were swept ashore. The water dragon was still guarding Dahei. At this time, Dahei finally finished brewing. With a sharp wolf howl, the spiritual power fluctuations in Dahei's body stabilized, and it was successfully promoted to a spirit beast of lower rank 1. At this time, a spirit ship came from downstream, and a strong man on the ship waved to Wang Daoyuan and said, "Seventh brother, I'm coming." It turned out to be his second brother, Wang Daoxing. Wang Daoyuan controlled the water dragon to swim over. Wang Daoxing jumped on the water dragon and was taken ashore by the water dragon. Wang Daoxing looked at the riverbank full of fish and a ranked crocodile and asked, "Seventh brother, what's going on? Are you using the water dragon technique to catch fish?" Wang Daoyuan replied, "My dog, which has been raised by my family for more than 20 years, was promoted to a spirit beast today. This group of reckless things wanted to take advantage of me, so I dragged them up. At this time, Dahe had already come ashore. It shook its fur and wagged its head and tail to Wang Daoyuan's side. Dahe's appearance did not change much, but it was much bigger. Originally it was as tall as Wang Daoyuan's thigh, but now it was taller than his waist. Wang Daoxing glanced at Dahe and said, "An ordinary dog can be promoted to a spirit beast of lower rank 1. This dog is very lucky. I've benefited from this black dog. As soon as I arrived here, there were a lot of freshwater fish waiting for me. Second brother, I've come to your territory. You can't let me leave on an empty stomach, right?" Wang Daoxing mainly refined his body, so he had a great need for food. Naturally, he was also a foodie. Seeing the freshwater fish all over the ground and the ranked crocodile, he could not move his legs. Even if it was not ranked, it tasted better than eating spiritual grains. Wang Daoyuan smiled and said, "Second brother, do you like this lower rank 1 crocodile? If you roast it, it'll be enough for us to eat for a few days." Wang Daoxing patted Wang Daoyuan's shoulder and said, "Seventh brother, you know me well." Chapter 64. Wang Daoyuan asked his eldest brother to give every family in the village a freshwater fish. There were still 20 to 30 fish, turtles, shrimp, and crabs left. Mortal fire was useful for unranked fish, shrimp, and crabs, but it was useless for a first-tier low-grade crocodile. Neither of them were fire attribute cultivators, so they could only use fire attribute spirit talismans to roast the crocodile. After cutting open the crocodile's stomach and removing its scales, Wang Daoyuan used the mystic yang sword and 2 stones to build a simple roasting rack. He took out a first-tier high-grade fire attribute spirit talisman. After activating it, he roasted the crocodile with spirit fire. Wang Daoxing's eyelids twitched when he saw this. A first-tier high-grade talisman cost 5 spirit stones. He didn't know any cultivation arts, so he couldn't earn many spirit stones in a month. Wang Daoyuan gave the other freshwater fish to his father and left them for the family to eat. The crocodile was soon roasted. The 2 tore off a large piece of meat from the crocodile and ate happily. Nephew Gu was drooling at the sight. He ran over wanting to share some of the meat, but Wang Daoyuan pulled him aside. "This crocodile meat can only be eaten by cultivators. Ordinary people can die from just 1 bite. If you want some meat, ask Grandpa for it. You can eat it." Ordinary people's bodies were too weak, so they could only eat non-ranked phase. Apart from spirit grains, which had a very mild spirit chi, eating a little of it could be fatal. Sanhua was also very hungry. It wanted to eat some crocodile meat, but its stomach was still full. Blackie didn't care. It monopolized the crocodile's internal organs and was happily gnawing at them. It had used up too much energy to increase its size. Now, it had made up for it and could also increase its cultivation. Spirit beasts without bloodline inheritances relied on eating phase to increase their cultivation. The 2 of them chatted as they ate. Wang Daoyuan asked, "Second brother, why do you have time to come to Qingxi village?" Wang Daoxing was stunned for a moment. He slapped his thigh and said, "I saw that there was demonic beast meat and forgot about business. Something happened at Mirror Iron Mountain, and the Patriarch sent me to deal with it." Mirror Iron Mountain's original name was Mirror Mountain. The origin of the name was unknown. The ancestors of the Wang family found a red iron mine in the belly of the mountain, so it was renamed Mirror Iron Mountain. It was not far from Qingxi village, only about 50 kilometers away. It was under the care of 8th uncle Wang Shoujiang. Most of the people mining there were ordinary members of the Wang family. There were also some itinerant cultivators at the initial stage of qi refinement or even meridian opening. They were there to earn some cultivation resources. "What happened?" Wang Daoyuan asked while eating. Wang Daoxing swallowed the meat in his mouth and said, "Recently, there have been people disappearing in the mine every now and then. At first, the disappearances were all rogue cultivators. After all, it is very common for rogue cultivators to leave after earning some resources, so the clansmen guarding the mine did not notice. Later on, mortals in the clan began to go missing. The families of the missing came to the mine to inquire. Only then did 8th uncle know that someone had gone missing. He searched the area but found nothing. He waited for a few days but still found nothing. 8th uncle reported it to the family, and the Patriarch sent me to assist 8th uncle. His 8th uncle, Wang Shoujiang, was not even 50 years old yet. He was at the 9th level of Qi disciple. His talent was not bad and he belonged to the category of combat talents. Besides, it was impossible to guard a business at the edge of the family's territory without any fighting power. What's more, the Mirror Iron Mountain was not far from the edge of the sky/mountain range, and there were often first-rank demonic beasts around. Wang Daoyuan was a little curious and asked, "Eighth uncle can't handle it. Why did the patriarch send you here?" Wang Daoxing glanced at him and said, "Why? Are you looking down on me?" Wang Daoyuan smiled and said, "How would I dare? It's just that your strength shouldn't be as good as eighth uncle's. When it comes to using your brain, you don't know anything about it. Aside from being a helper for eighth uncle when there are powerful demonic beasts, you won't be of any use. I don't know what the patriarch's intention is. Does the patriarch think that the demonic beast is so strong that eighth uncle can't deal with it alone?" Wang Daoxing was still chewing meat in his mouth. "How would I know? The patriarch didn't tell me the specific situation. He just asked me to come here and listen to eighth uncle's arrangements." Wang Daoyuan thought for a while and said, "Then I'll go with you. We can take care of each other. Since we're searching for the enemy, I'll bring Big Black. It has a keen sense of smell and is better than us in this aspect. The soul-chasing bee could not be exposed. Otherwise it would be more efficient to use it to track the enemy." Wang Daoxing naturally had no objections. Having someone to help him was better than going alone. Wang Daoyuan bade farewell to his parents and put away the roasted crocodile and Big Black's food. He put Big Black into the spirit beast bag and followed his second brother to Mirror Iron Mountain. The spirit ship was already far away, and the two could only rely on their legs. They used first-grade high-grade spirit travel talismans, and their speed was much faster than riding the spirit ship. The two ran for less than an hour, and Mirror Iron Mountain was already in sight. Mirror Iron Mountain was not tall, only a few hundred feet. The mountain's roots were especially large, but this made it convenient for the Wang family to mine and transport the ores. This place was only about 10 miles away from Mirror Iron Mountain. Wang Daoyuan let his second brother go alone while he disguised himself as a loose cultivator and patrolled the nearby area. If the two of them went together, if the enemy was human, it would be easy for them to hide and not make a move. That would be troublesome. One could be a thief for 1,000 days but not a thief for 1,000 days. If the two of them separated, one in the light and one in the dark, the enemy would not be too wary. Since the enemy dared to provoke a cultivator at the 9th level of Qi refinement who was relatively strong in fights of magical powers, they would not be scared away by an 8th level Qi refinement cultivator. Wang Daoyuan was in the dark, so it was convenient for him to investigate and not make the enemy too vigilant. He changed into a black robe and put on a veil and a bamboo hat. It was already late. Wang Daoyuan used an invisibility spell and an aura concealment talisman to sneak into a small forest about 1.5 miles southwest of Mirror Iron Mountain. He found a large tree with lush foliage and hid among the branches and leaves. With the invisibility spell and aura concealment talisman, as well as the cover of the branches and leaves, as long as the enemy was not a Foundation Establishment cultivator or above, it would be difficult for them to discover him even if he was under the tree. Of course, the enemy could not be a Foundation Establishment cultivator. Otherwise they could have just faced him head-on. There was no need to be sneaky. Perhaps the enemy saw that the Wang family had a new helper and did not know the details, so they did not dare to act rashly. It was safe for a few days. In these few days Wang Daoyuan explored the surroundings and released Big Black to search, but he did not find any traces of demon beasts or other cultivators nearby. After waiting for a few more days there was still no movement. Wang Daoyuan decided to change his strategy. He first secretly sent a message to Wang Daoxing, asking him and 8th uncle to announce that the problem had been solved. Then he recruited a group of miners and used an aura concealment talisman to disguise himself as an early-stage Qi refinement itinerant cultivator. Based on the fact that the enemy first attacked itinerant cultivators and then ordinary people, it could be seen that his main target was cultivators. The reason why he attacked ordinary people was probably because there were no more cultivators. And Wang Daoyuan used a mid-grade level 1 aura concealment talisman, which could not completely conceal his aura at the 7th level of Qi refinement. The aura that leaked out was probably at the 1st or 2nd level of Qi refinement or the peak of meridian opening. After the incident, some itinerant cultivators went missing, and some were scared away. There were no more cultivators among the miners of Mirror Iron Mountain. Wang Daoyuan went in. As a rare cultivator miner, he was more attractive than ordinary people. He was likely to become the enemy's first target. Wang Daoyuan was not worried that the enemy was too strong and would kill him. With his cloud smoke escape and hundreds of talismans, it was difficult for anyone below the Foundation establishment to take him down. Moreover, in the mine the enemy had little room to dodge. If he randomly scattered talismans, it would be difficult for the enemy to dodge all of them. If the enemy did not have particularly strong means and was at the peak of Qi refinement, he also had a chance to kill them. Of course, the enemy's strength would not be too strong. At least they would not be a match for 8th uncle. Otherwise, wouldn't it be better to take down 8th uncle directly than to capture itinerant cultivators at the early stage qi refinement? Chapter 65. On the second day after Wang Daoyuan sent the message, 8th uncle Wang Shoujiang sent out a recruitment notice. Some of the ordinary clansmen in the vicinity came to Mirror Iron Mountain one after another. After all, this was the edge of the Wang clan's territory and there were many demon beasts. It was very difficult to feed a family just by growing crops. Most of the young and strong clansmen chose to work in the clan's mines and forests. Wang Daoyuan changed into a black robe and did not wear a bamboo hat. He changed his name to Huang Yun and snuck into Mirror Iron Mountain. There were many loose cultivators dressed like this, so it was not conspicuous. This time, apart from the ordinary clansmen of the Wang clan, there were also a few loose cultivators who were only at the first or second level of qi refinement. Most loose cultivators did not have a systematic inheritance, so it was extremely rare for them to know the various arts of cultivation. For cultivators like them who had just stepped onto the path of cultivation, their cultivation was low, their combat strength was weak, and they did not have the ability to hunt demon beasts. They also did not have any special skills. Other than working for some factions, there was no good way out. The Wang clan's Taoism was backward and they had always behaved with their tails between their legs. They treated ordinary itinerant cultivators kindly. They had a good reputation among loose cultivators, so there were still some loose cultivators who worked for the Wang clan. Some loose cultivators even married into the Wang clan. All the cultivation clans were happy to recruit loose cultivators. After all, every clan had many female cultivators. If they married outside, the clan would suffer too much. If a cultivator who was painstakingly cultivated married into another clan, the initial investment would be wasted. Moreover, it was easy to expose some of the clan's secrets. Unless they married into a stronger clan to seek support. For example, a female cultivator from a foundation establishment clan would marry a disciple from a Zifu clan. Instead, they could recruit outstanding loose cultivators to add new blood to the clan and increase the number of cultivators in the clan. Some loose cultivators worked in the businesses of the cultivation clans with the intention of marrying into the clan. Although most clans would not help the marrying cultivators reach foundation establishment, they would still provide a lot of daily cultivation resources. The marrying cultivators themselves would not be recognized by the clan, but their descendants would grow up in the clan and would not be looked at differently. Among the loose cultivators who entered the mines with Wang Daoyuan, there was one who had the intention of marrying into the Wang clan. This person's appearance was not bad. He was more than 7 feet tall and looked to be in his early 20s. However, he gave people a feeling of greasiness. As soon as this person saw Wang Daoyuan, he took the initiative to strike up a conversation. "Brother, do you also want to marry into the Wang family?" Wang Daoyuan felt a little strange. Why would this fellow ask such a question? Could it be that this was a popular greeting among rogue cultivators? Besides, he didn't look like someone who lived off a woman. His appearance was rather masculine, and he was more than 8 feet tall. His eyebrows were like sleeping silkworms and his eyes were like bright stars. His face was angular and he did not look like a pretty boy at all. Wang Daoyuan asked, "Brother, why do you ask? Are many of the miners here to marry into the Wang family?" "That's not much, but that's what I'm thinking." The slick young man said, "I am Lin Yuan. Seeing that you have an extraordinary appearance and are doing this kind of work, I thought that you also wanted to marry into the Wang family. If that's the case, I have another strong opponent." Wang Daoyuan was a little suspicious of this Lin Yuan. This fellow had never seen a female cultivator of the Wang family, and he wanted to marry into their family. Either he felt that the immortal Dao was hopeless and did not want to work hard anymore. He wanted to find a place to stay and live a good life. To put it bluntly, he wanted to be a parasite. Or he was a spy sent by other forces. No matter which one it was, he was not a good person. Moreover, this fellow came at this time and even took the initiative to greet him. It was really possible that he was related to the previous missing persons case. 20 to 30 people came in the morning. In the afternoon, the steward took the newcomers down to the mine and assigned them work. The mine tunnel was dug according to the direction of the ore vein. There were many twists and turns and there were also many forks. If not for the steward leading the way, no one would be able to find the place at all. In the mine there were a senior steward and a junior steward. The senior steward was in charge of one of the matters in the mine, such as mining, transporting, logistics, and so on. Under the senior steward, there were several junior stewards who were equivalent to team leaders. They were in charge of a few to dozens of people. Most of these stewards were relatives of the Wang clan cultivators. They did not have spirit roots. In order to let the cultivators have no worries, The clan usually gave them some work in the clan's business. The senior steward led the group of people into the mine. Each junior steward picked a few people and brought them into the mine tunnel they were in charge of. The junior steward assigned to Wang Daoyuan was an honest man in his 30s. He did not speak much and was quite good to the ordinary miners. He was quite loved and respected by the miners. There was also a loose cultivator assigned to Wang Daoyuan. He was in his 30s and was at the second level of Qi disciple. The strength of cultivators far exceeded that of ordinary people. Their mining speed was also far from what ordinary people could compare to. If there were cultivators under them, they would be able to dig out more ore in the entire mine tunnel. The junior steward would also be rewarded. The junior steward was very happy to be assigned 2 cultivators at once. He brought the newcomers to the rest area of his mine tunnel and said to the old miners, "This time our mine tunnel has been assigned 2 cultivators. This month we will definitely be ranked first. When the time comes, everyone will be rewarded." A robust young man sneered, "What's the use of cultivators? Were there few cultivators in the mine in the past? Didn't they all disappear without a trace? It's hard to say how many days these 2 can live." The loose cultivator who came with Wang Daoyuan was a little scared and asked, "Didn't you say that this matter has already been resolved?" The robust young man snorted and said, "What do you mean resolved? It's just that the clan sent another person over. Nothing happened these few days. After investigating for a few days, we can't even find out why they disappeared." The junior steward reprimanded, "What nonsense are you talking about? Do you still want to work?" The robust young man was not convinced. Just as he was about to continue arguing with the junior steward, he was pulled back by a few of his older companions. The junior steward assigned the newcomers to work and turned to leave. Wang Daoyuan wanted to get a few more words, so he pretended to be reckless and said, "Who cares what's causing trouble? I, Wang Daoyuan, have been cultivating since I was young. Do you think I'm afraid of those demons and ghosts?" Seeing Wang Daoyuan boasting, the robust young man mocked, "There were a few immortals older than you before, but they didn't even make a sound before they disappeared. No matter how strong you are, can you be stronger than the immortals sent by the clan to guard the Mirror Iron Mountain? Even that old man couldn't find out the reason, can you?" Since the junior steward was not here, everyone dared to speak. One after another they began to talk. A middle-aged man in his 40s said, "Speaking of which, it's strange. I'm already in my 40s, but I'm not as sleepy as you youngsters. I only sleep for 4 to 6 hours a day. But every time someone goes missing, I'm especially sleepy and can sleep for more than 8 hours." Everyone was talking enthusiastically. Wang Daoyuan also discovered the abnormalities when people went missing from their conversation. The miners all slept in the resting area at night. The so-called resting area was formed by the expansion of the mine. Everyone had a straw mattress and 2 blankets. The resting area was not big and there were dozens of people resting here. But every time someone went missing, the other people in the same mine did not notice. Even the cultivators who had not gone missing did not notice anything. In addition, the middle-aged man said that every time someone went missing, he always slept very deeply. From this, it could be inferred that someone might have poisoned him or used a spell to calm his nerves. Chapter 66. Everyone was still discussing the disappearance enthusiastically. The newcomers did not feel much fear. After all, the culprit's first target was cultivators. There were 2 of them here, so it was not their turn for the time being. The rogue cultivator who came with Wang Daoyuan seemed very nervous and scared. Wang Daoyuan also pretended to be nervous so as not to be seen through. After about a quarter of an hour, the steward came in with a few tools. Everyone stopped discussing, and Wang Daoyuan did not hear any more useful information. The steward gave out tools to the newcomers. These tools looked like pickaxes and were made from level 1 red iron. However, they were simply forged and were not forged by a blacksmith. There were no patterns on the pickaxes either. Compared to ordinary tools, they were stronger and sharper. The steward led the group to the deepest part of the mine. There was no road ahead, only red stone walls. These stones were red iron ore. These red iron ore were not hard and were similar to ordinary stones. Mortals could also break them. With the red iron pickaxes, it was not too difficult to mine the ore. As a cultivator in the late stage of Qi refining, Wang Daoyuan naturally had a much easier time than ordinary people. Although he deliberately held back his strength, the amount of ore he dug was more than 10 times that of ordinary people. The amount of ore the other cultivator dug was less than half of Wang Daoyuan's. However, Wang Daoyuan grew up in a family, so his living conditions were much better than rogue cultivators. In addition, he had eaten spirit grains and pseudo-spirit fish in recent years, so his body was relatively strong. That rogue cultivator was thin and small, so it was reasonable that Wang Daoyuan was much more capable than him. Unknowingly, it was already very late. Although the sky could not be seen in the mine, the miners' bodies were the best timer. Most of the miners were hungry and tired, so it was time to stop work and eat. The steward led the group to the dining area outside the mine. The other stewards also brought people one after another. Then the rogue cultivators and ordinary people ate separately. The ordinary people's food was ordinary grains and some fish. Ordinary food was harmful to cultivators, so the food provided to the rogue cultivators was cooked spirit grains, which were distributed according to the amount of spirit grains mined. Wang Daoyuan was given half a gene of spirit grains. Cultivators would receive these spirit grains as their reward, while ordinary people would receive some gold, silver, or food. Wang Daoyuan did not eat these spirit grains. He had already deduced that someone might have poisoned them. Naturally, he did not dare to casually eat anything. Putting away these spirit grains, he turned around and returned to the rest area of the mine. After the meal, everyone returned to the resting area. The steward came over and asked, "Are you not satisfied with the food?" Wang Daoyuan replied, "How could I? I can't eat such good food outside. I just can't bear to eat so much. I still have a younger brother at home. He's still young and needs spirit grains to nourish his body." The young steward advised, "I can understand that. I usually save some food and bring it home for the children. Although you're an immortal, you're doing the work of more than 10 people. If you don't eat, don't tire yourself out." Wang Daoyuan expressed his gratitude and said, "Steward, don't worry. When I'm hungry, I'll naturally eat some." After saying that, Wang Daoyuan's spiritual sense entered the space of the spirit pearl. He cooked 2 taels of spirit grains produced in the space of the spirit pearl and took them out to eat. Naturally, no one could see any flaws. Everyone worked hard for the whole afternoon and exhausted a lot of their physical strength. After eating, they naturally began to feel sleepy. Even the rogue cultivator began to doze off. Soon he could no longer hold on and fell asleep. Although Wang Daoyuan worked the most, he had been restraining his strength. This was much easier than refining talismans in the Dan Talisman Pavilion and cultivating spells. In order not to be too conspicuous and attract the attention of those who were secretly watching, he also pretended to be tired. However, he still chose to meditate and cultivate. Rogue cultivators who had not given up on the path of cultivation were usually more hardworking than family disciples. The resources and inheritance of rogue cultivators could not be compared to family disciples. If they wanted to stand out, they could only work harder and risk their lives. Therefore, it was not strange that Wang Daoyuan did not rest but meditated and cultivated. He did not dare to meditate. Instead, he was always vigilant to prevent someone from sneaking an attack. Unfortunately, after being careful for a night, nothing happened. Every day, he worked during the day and maintained vigilance to meditate and cultivate at night. After 5 days, everything was calm. On the night of the 6th day, Wang Daoyuan meditated and cultivated as usual. A smell like wine came from the steward. The fragrance was very light. Ordinary people could not smell it at all. Even Wang Daoyuan could barely smell it. The steward usually lived in the rest area with the ordinary workers. However, the place he lived was a special single room in the stone wall. There was a bed and furniture inside. Wang Daoyuan smelled the fragrance and held his breath vigilantly. Cultivators could hold their breath for a long time and only rely on the spiritual power in their body to maintain their life. With Wang Daoyuan's cultivation, holding his breath for 2 or 3 hours was not a problem. In order not to be seen after he held his breath, his chest and abdomen still rose and fell regularly, pretending that he was still breathing. Wang Daoyuan's spiritual sense swept towards that loose cultivator, imitating his state. Because the strength he showed was much stronger than that loose cultivator, he always delayed imitating his state for a while. After less than a quarter of an hour, that loose cultivator completely entered a state of drowsiness. Wang Daoyuan also went from meditating to paralyzed on the bed. The young steward walked out of his private room. His originally honest and big brother face had turned into a ferocious one. His eyes swept back and forth between Wang Daoyuan and the other loose cultivator, as if he was choosing goods. After thinking for a while, the steward chose Wang Daoyuan. After all, Wang Daoyuan was much stronger than the other loose cultivator in terms of strength and physique. His appearance was also very good. He picked up Wang Daoyuan and stuck a first-level high-grade Earth Escape Talisman on Wang Daoyuan's body. Then he used his spiritual sense to trigger the Earth Escape Talisman. Wang Daoyuan was directly forced to escape underground. After doing this, the steward returned to his single room and continued to sleep as if nothing had happened. Wang Daoyuan was a little surprised. There was no spiritual power fluctuation on the steward's body at all. A person with no cultivation base could actually use the power of spiritual sense to trigger the talisman. He was forced to escape underground and did not have time to think about this. After a dozen breaths, he escaped to an underground cave. He just happened to fall on a giant python. This giant python was more than 5 feet long. Its body was yellow with black lines. Its body had 2 attributes of water and earth spiritual power fluctuations. However, its cultivation base was not enough. It had just entered the 1st level middle grade, which was equivalent to the 4th level of chi refining. In a head-on fight, this giant python was not enough to be smashed by Wang Daoyuan's 2 talismans. Wang Daoyuan was ready. If this giant python dared to swallow him, he would kill it directly. Then he would catch the steward and interrogate him. Fortunately, this python did not swallow him. Instead, it wrapped him with its tail. Then it used the earth escape technique and continued to escape downwards. Wang Daoyuan was a little surprised. It seemed that this giant python was not an ordinary monster beast. It could actually use the earth escape technique. Ordinary 1st level monster beasts, their intelligence was still very low. Basically, they did not know spells. Unless they had the bloodline of a high-level monster beast, they had their own innate spells. Or they had a master monster beast and were taught spells. He did not feel any special bloodline in this giant python. It seemed that it should be a monster beast with a master. Otherwise, it would have directly swallowed him to increase its cultivation base. Why bother to take him to other places? Chapter 67. The giant python carried Wang Daoyuan more than 30 meters deep, and the bottom was empty. At this moment, Wang Daoyuan felt a wave of water spirit energy rushing towards him. He carefully probed his surroundings with his divine sense and discovered that this hole was actually an underground river flowing towards the south. It should be flowing into the clear stream. The giant python did not go towards the clear stream. Instead, it carried Wang Daoyuan upstream. As the giant python gradually went deeper into the underground river, the surrounding water spirit energy became denser and denser. It was already comparable to the vicinity of a mid-grade Tier 1 spirit vein. After a quarter of an hour, the giant python had already traveled dozens of miles. At this moment, the density of the spirit energy was comparable to a high-grade Tier 1 spirit vein. Furthermore, it was extremely close to a low-grade Tier 2 spirit vein. The giant python stopped moving forward and stopped in the underground river. With a swing of its tail, it threw Wang Daoyuan towards the stone wall beside the river. Just as Wang Daoyuan was about to smash into the stone wall, a door suddenly opened on the stone wall. Wang Daoyuan used his divine sense to hurriedly investigate the situation inside the stone wall. He only discovered that there were many restrictions inside. If he were to enter, it would definitely be difficult for him to escape with his strength. Wang Daoyuan adjusted his body in the air and removed the force of the giant python's tail swing. Then he took out 3 golden sword talismans and threw them into the stone door. The 3 small golden swords flew into the stone door. With a burst of explosive sounds, the small golden swords disappeared. Seeing that he had woken up, the giant python raised half of its body from the water and opened its bloody mouth to bite him. Although Wang Daoyuan did not have much close combat experience, he had still been beaten by the 12th uncle Wang Shui for 3 months when he was consolidating his cultivation. Facing a giant python that had just entered the middle grade of Tier 1, he did not feel any pressure. In order to hide his strength, he did not use the talisman again, nor did he use the cloud mist escape or the water dragon technique. He only drew out the profound yang sword. The python bit at him. The long sword in his hand chopped at the python's head. Borrowing the rebound force, he retreated to the stone wall and fell to the ground along the stone wall. As a chi refinement cultivator, it was better to be on the ground. Even if he had strength in the air, he would not be able to use it. It had to be said that although this python's cultivation was not very high, its physical strength was not weak. As soon as they exchanged blows, Wang Daoyuan's arm became slightly numb. He knew that if they were at the same cultivation level, he wouldn't be able to defeat this giant python. The giant python's attack missed, but Wang Daoyuan didn't gain any advantage. It opened its bloody mouth and tried to bite Wang Daoyuan again. This time he stood on the ground and had room to maneuver. He kicked his feet hard and deviated from his original position. The giant python's stinky mouth bit his previous position. The profound yang sword in Wang Daoyuan's hand pierced out, striking the giant python's neck. Unfortunately, the python's skin was coarse and its flesh was thick. The profound yang sword was also not very sharp. This sword was only able to pierce an inch in and was unable to go any deeper. He flicked his sword upwards, leaving a half-foot long wound on the giant python's neck. Blood continued to seep out of the wound, but this wound was not even a minor injury for the giant python that was more than 5 feet long. The wound instead stimulated the giant python's ferocious nature. It raised its head and pounced at Wang Daoyuan again. Although the giant python's physical body was strong, its cultivation and divine sense were far inferior to Wang Daoyuan's. Its reaction speed was also far behind. Before its mouth could bite, Wang Daoyuan jumped up and landed on the giant python's neck. The giant python's neck bent, revealing a gap in the scales at the back of its neck. Wang Daoyuan held the profound yang sword tightly with both hands and pierced through the gap in the scales at the giant python's neck. This sword was not blocked by the scales and entered more than 3 inches into the python's body. It could be considered a light injury to the giant python. Even the flexibility of its head was affected. The giant python felt the pain and wanted to counterattack, but Wang Daoyuan was standing on its neck. No matter how powerful its mouth was, it couldn't bite the back of his head. Although pythons were agile, they all had a weakness. Their mouths couldn't reach their tails, and their tails naturally couldn't hit the back of their heads. At this moment, Wang Daoyuan was standing on the back of the python's neck, which was a blind spot for the python. At this moment, the profound yang sword was still stuck in the gap between the python's scales, constantly bleeding it. The python twisted its body with all its might, trying to throw Wang Daoyuan off. Unfortunately, the profound yang sword was stuck in the ground tightly. Wang Daoyuan held the sword hilt tightly, and no matter how the giant python tried to shake its body, it wouldn't come down. The pain on its neck made the giant python extremely irritable. It used its neck to smash into the stone wall in an attempt to smash Wang Daoyuan to death. When the giant python's neck was less than 3 meters away from the stone wall, Wang Daoyuan abandoned the profound yang sword and ran down the python's body, avoiding the collision. However, the profound yang sword was still stuck in the giant python's neck. With this collision, the profound yang sword had penetrated more than half a foot. Even though the giant python's skin was thick, it was still heavily injured. The python's head drooped down weakly. Wang Daoyuan once again ran to the giant python's neck. Holding the profound yang sword, he used all his strength to stir the sword, hoping to cause more damage to the giant python. The giant python let out a series of roars, but it was powerless. Blood spurted out from the profound yang sword like a fountain. Seeing that stirring the wound was effective, Wang Daoyuan changed from stirring to cutting horizontally to widen the wound. Sure enough, as the wound expanded, the blood spurted higher and higher. The giant python was already powerless to resist. In less than a quarter of an hour, the python would die from blood loss. An old voice sounded. This time, it was this evil creature that offended Daoyu. Daoyu, please be magnanimous and let it live. Wang Daoyuan mocked. Daoyu's words are really easy to say. You poisoned me and even dragged me here. With such tight cooperation, you really are a good beast. When the person in the dark heard Wang Daoyuan scolding him, he snorted coldly and said, Daoyu should leave now. Don't waste your life. Of course, these words were only to deceive a fool who had no experience in the pugilistic world. The secret cave abode had been exposed. How could the person in the dark let someone who knew about it leave alive? Wang Daoyuan said disdainfully, I was sleeping well. This beast dragged me here and wants me to leave with just a few words? How can there be such a good thing? The person in the dark said angrily, this matter is also Daoyu's fault. You hid your cultivation and sneaked into my territory. You can't blame this evil creature for being captured here. These words made Wang Daoyuan so angry that he laughed. As far as I know, this mirror iron mountain is the property of the Wang family. May I ask who Daoyu is to the Wang family? The person in the dark said with a smile, Daoyu, are you going to stand up for the Wang family? I'm afraid you don't have the ability. Wang Daoyuan pulled out the mystic yang sword and jumped down from the python. He said, it's only 2 moves. How does Daoyu know that I don't have the ability? The person in the dark sneered, it's hard to persuade a damned ghost with kind words. I gave Daoyu a chance to leave. Unfortunately, Daoyu didn't cherish it. Then stay. I haven't captured a late-stage chi refinement itinerant cultivator. You are the first. With that said, 2 smaller pythons and a 4-feet-long crocodile crawled out of the door. These 3 demon beasts were all middle-grade tier 1. They were even stronger than the python from before. Following that, an old man in a black robe walked out of the stone door. He asked with a smile, are these evil creatures worthy of Daoyu's attention? I've long advised Daoyu to leave, but you insist on sending yourself to your death. Why do you have to do this at such a young age? I advise Daoyu to be obedient. Resisting is just looking for trouble. If you give up resisting, you will die a quick death and I will kill you easily. Why not? Chapter 68. Wang Daoyuan sneered, a toad yawning, such big words. You dare to ask me to surrender with just these few pieces of rotten garlic? After saying that, Wang Daoyuan condensed a ball of water spiritual energy and turned it into a 3-feet-long water dragon, emitting a faint dragon's aura. The 3 demonic beasts sensed the dragon's might and retreated a distance before the battle even started. The black-robed old man said in surprise, "The water dragon's scales and claws can intimidate monsters. You're from the Wang clan? No wonder you're looking for death. If Wang Shui came personally, I would be afraid of him. You little kid, the water dragon you condensed is only 3 feet long, and you dare to be impudent in front of me." Wang Daoyuan mocked, "You old fool, you really boast shamelessly. Give me back my 12th uncle and you're afraid of him. If the 12th uncle came personally, even if you peed in your pants, the 12th uncle would make you hold it back. I'm enough to take care of you. Don't say I didn't give you a chance. Surrender now and tell me who ordered you to come. I'll let you die a quick death. Otherwise, it'll be too late for you to beg for mercy." The black-robed old man became angry and scolded, "Little bastard, you're courting death." After saying that, he ordered the 3 frightened monsters to come forward. Although the 3 monsters were afraid, they didn't dare to disobey and could only slowly crawl forward. Wang Daoyuan's water dragon was still too small, and the water dragon technique wasn't good at attacking. He simply wrapped the water dragon around his body and turned it into a dragon-patterned armor. This was a technique derived from the Wang clan's water dragon technique and the water armor technique. Water dragon armor, which could greatly increase one's defense. Wang Daoyuan's water dragon armor was still a deterrent to demonic beasts. Under the urging of the black-robed old man, the 3 demonic beasts finally arrived in front of Wang Daoyuan. The 3 demonic beasts attacked Wang Daoyuan at the same time. Wang Daoyuan directly used the smoke escape technique, and a cloud of mist with a diameter of over 30 meters instantly appeared. Wang Daoyuan disappeared from his original position. In this place the water spirit chi was very dense. When Wang Daoyuan used the smoke escape technique, the cloud he condensed was much larger than usual. The 3 demonic beasts missed and crashed into each other. They did not know what to do in the fog. Wang Daoyuan suddenly appeared about 3 meters away from the black-robed old man and threw out a golden sword talisman. At this distance, unless one was prepared, it would be very difficult to dodge. From the old man's surprised expression, it could be seen that he had not expected Wang Daoyuan to do this. If this golden sword art was hit, even if he didn't die, he would be severely injured. Just when Wang Daoyuan thought that he could seriously injure his opponent, a figure flew from the side and blocked the golden sword talisman's attack. This figure was a loose cultivator's common attire. It should be one of the loose cultivators who went missing earlier. Looking at his aura, he should be at the 2nd level of Chi Disciple. The small golden sword hit the loose cultivator's chest. The metal attribute spiritual energy entered his body. He spat out a large mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. He could not be more dead. However, Wang Daoyuan was very surprised. This person looked like a living person, but why would a captured person risk his life to save the black-robed old man? The black-robed old man seized the opportunity and spat out a black smoke. Wang Daoyuan instantly came back to his senses. He threw out another golden sword talisman and used the smoke escape technique again, disappearing from his original position. The small golden sword hit the black smoke and made a ZZ sound of corrosion. Then there was the sound of metal colliding and the small golden sword disappeared. Although this attack did not succeed, it was enough to test the black-robed old man's strength. This guy's strength was probably at the late stage of Chi Disciple. He was obviously not at the peak of Chi Disciple. Other than controlling demonic beasts, he was not good at fighting alone. If there were no demonic beasts or loose cultivators to block the blade for him, Wang Daoyuan would not need the talisman. He could just use the profound yang sword to chop him alive. The black smoke that the black-robed old man spat out contained a metal-concealed weapon. It had already been repelled by the golden sword talisman. The black smoke mixed with the clouds and once again made a ZZ sound of corrosion. A moment later, the sound of corrosion stopped and the black smoke disappeared without a trace. A large part of the clouds was also corroded. The black-robed old man had a pained expression. His black smoke was painstakingly cultivated. Wang Daoyuan did not care. The water spirit energy here was rich. Most of the clouds he used to use the smoke escape technique were formed from the external water spirit energy, so his consumption was very little. At this time, Wang Daoyuan had already figured out the black-robed old man's strength. He was not worried that he could not beat him. This guy was already so old and had not cultivated to the peak of Chi Disciple. He was also not a very talented person. However, he could control demonic beasts and living people. He must have spent all his time in these aspects. His own ability was not very good. If this continued, Wang Daoyuan would definitely be the winner. However, what he wanted was not to defeat his opponent but to kill him. If you don't kill the snake, you will cause harm to yourself. If the black-robed old man was allowed to escape, he would madly attack the various properties of the Wang family in the future. Then the Wang family's mines and forests would not be able to be guarded. Wang Daoyuan did not use his true ability at this time, mainly because he was afraid of scaring the black-robed old man. If he directly started to scatter talismans, 3 golden sword talismans would be able to deal with the 3 demonic beasts. However, that would scare the black-robed old man into retreating. No one knew if there were other passages in the stone wall. If he scared the old man into escaping through other passages, there would be a lot of restrictions inside. Even if he used talismans, it would still take some time. By the time he broke the restrictions, the old man would have already run far away. At that time, Wang Daoyuan would not even be able to find a place to cry. The best way was to show weakness first and give the black-robed old man hope of victory. If he was unwilling to leave, then he would find an opportunity to sneak attack and kill him. Wang Daoyuan tangled with the 3 demonic beasts for a while. His profound yang sword was not considered sharp. Previously, he had spent a lot of effort fighting the giant python. These 3 demonic beasts were even more powerful. Without talismans, there was no chance of killing them. After fighting with the 3 demonic beasts for a while, he used the same trick again. He used smoke escape and instantly appeared beside the black-robed old man. Then he threw out another golden sword talisman. However, the black-robed old man was already prepared. He took out a pitch-black shield and blocked the small golden sword. The sound of metal colliding rang out. Wang Daoyuan guessed that this was a metal attribute magic tool. Just as he was about to take out a fire attribute talisman, the black-robed old man spat out another cloud of black smoke. Wang Daoyuan blocked it with his sword. The black-robed old man sneered as if victory was already in his grasp. With a crisp ding sound, a pitch-black needle-like magic tool hit the profound yang sword and was bounced away. The black smoke also followed suit, enveloping the profound yang sword. Wang Daoyuan drew a sword flower, dispersing the black smoke that was attached to the sword. Once again he used smoke escape to escape. When Wang Daoyuan appeared, the black-robed old man was stunned. The profound yang sword that he expected to be corroded beyond recognition was actually intact. Wang Daoyuan was not surprised at all. When he first bought the profound yang sword, Zhao Liang, that profiteer, had bragged about the profound yang sword's unafraid of corrosion. Even if the profound yang sword was crippled, there was nothing to pity. His main strength was talismans, followed by smoke escape and water dragon technique. The profound yang sword was nothing. It seemed that the black-robed old man felt that his profound yang sword was very important, so he used it as bait to lure him out. However, his shield was also very troublesome. The golden sword talisman had no practical effect on it. He still had to find a fire attribute attack talisman to cripple the shield. Chapter 69. Wang Daoyuan continued to use the sneak attack strategy. After fighting with the 3 monsters for a while, he used the cloud escape to attack the black-robed old man. However, he no longer used the golden sword talisman. Instead, he used the fire arrow talisman, fire python talisman and other fire attribute talismans. He didn't expect to be effective in one blow. He just wanted to completely destroy the old man's shield. Among the 5 elements, fire suppressed metal. In terms of consumption, using the fire attribute to consume metal was the fastest. After fighting for more than 10 rounds, it seemed that Wang Daoyuan was crazily using the escape technique, but in fact the consumption of spiritual power was not much. The cloud escape consumed spiritual power mainly from the outside world's water spiritual power. He also used talismans to attack the black-robed old man. It only required a little spiritual power or divine sense to activate the talismans. If the outside world's water spiritual power was relatively thin, Wang Daoyuan's spiritual power would have been exhausted. Even so, after fighting with the giant python and then being besieged by the 3 monsters, plus using the water dragon technique, he consumed 60% of his spiritual power. The black-robed old man was not much better off. He was constantly activating the black shield, which consumed a lot of spirit energy. Furthermore, his shield had been smashed full of holes by Wang Daoyuan, some of which had almost penetrated the shield. Wang Daoyuan estimated that this shield could at most withstand the attack of 2 or 3 first-order high-grade fire attribute talismans. After that, it would be completely destroyed. However, he didn't dare to continue attacking. If he directly broke the shield and scared the black-robed old man, his opponent would run away. Wang Daoyuan wouldn't even have a place to cry. It was impossible to kill the opponent with a sneak attack, unless he used the last golden sword talisman. However, that was a life-saving thing. Unless the black-robed old man was determined to escape, he really didn't want to use it. Since he couldn't use force, he could only lure the black-robed old man out and kill him. Under normal circumstances, Wang Daoyuan used so many spells and had been wearing the water dragon armor. His spiritual power should be close to exhaustion. At this time it was reasonable to escape. Determined to lure the enemy, Wang Daoyuan dodged the monster's attack and used the cloud escape again. As soon as Wang Daoyuan disappeared, the black-robed old man immediately activated his shield to defend. By the time Wang Daoyuan appeared, he realized that Wang Daoyuan had already escaped downstream along the underground river. In order to make his act more realistic, Wang Daoyuan put away the water dragon armor and stuffed an essence recovery pill and a spirit cleansing pill into his mouth to recover his spiritual power and divine sense. The black-robed old man finally believed that Wang Daoyuan really couldn't hold on any longer. He had been operating in this underground river for many years. If Wang Daoyuan escaped and brought the experts of the Wang family to clean up this place, he wouldn't be able to stop them. However, he did not want to give up this nest that he had spent so much effort on. Therefore, he could only try his best to keep Wang Daoyuan here. Wang Daoyuan used a divine movement talisman. His speed was very fast and he was about to disappear from his line of sight. The black-robed old man didn't have time to weigh the pros and cons. He immediately went to the back of the crocodile and ordered the 3 monster beasts to chase after Wang Daoyuan. Although the 3 monster beasts' cultivation wasn't high, they were still aquatic monsters. Their speed in the underground river couldn't be underestimated. In order to lure the black-robed old man to chase after him, Wang Daoyuan didn't use the water escape talisman. Instead, he used the divine movement talisman, relying on his 2 legs to run. In the water, his speed was greatly limited and the distance was shortened. Wang Daoyuan secretly drank some of the 30-year-old scarlet blood wine to recover his spiritual power. He didn't want to run out of spiritual power. It had to be said that this 30-year-old wine was really strong. It replenished spiritual power very quickly, and it didn't go to the head. After drinking a few cups, Wang Daoyuan's spiritual power was almost recovered. The black-robed old man chased closer and closer. When he was several feet away from Wang Daoyuan turned around and threw out 3 golden sword talismans. The 2 pythons' heads were directly pierced, and they frantically struggled on the ground. However, death was only a matter of time. The golden sword that shot towards the crocodile was blocked by the black-robed old man's shield. The black-robed old man was full of smiles, as if victory was already in his hands. This place was already more than 10 miles away from the black-robed old man's lair. At such a distance, even if Wang Daoyuan revealed his true ability, he wouldn't be able to escape. Wang Daoyuan simply stopped pretending and put away the profound yang sword. In any case, this sword wasn't very useful. It took him half a day to kill a mid-grade rank 1 monster beast. He took out 2 talismans, a golden armor talisman and an earth armor talisman. After activating them, his body was enveloped in 2 layers of armor. Then he used the cloud escape and instantly appeared behind the black-robed old man, blocking his retreat. 3 fire arrow talismans were thrown out, transforming into 3 arrows made of flames, aiming straight at the black-robed old man. The black-robed old man once again used his shield to block. The shield didn't disappoint and blocked the 3 fire arrows. However, it also lost its spiritual power and was completely scrapped. Wang Daoyuan took out another golden sword talisman. The black-robed old man's movement technique didn't seem to be very good and couldn't dodge in time. In the end, the crocodile blocked the golden sword talisman for him. Wang Daoyuan was still a little confused. Whether it was a monster beast or a rogue cultivator from before, why would they risk their lives to save someone? However, with his previous experience, he didn't hesitate and threw out another golden sword talisman. The black-robed old man once again spat out a cloud of black smoke. Wang Daoyuan had experience. There were needle-type concealed weapons hidden in the black smoke. The black smoke was also corrosive. He immediately used the cloud escape and dodged far away. Wang Daoyuan dodged far away. The black-robed old man chanted an incantation and an ancient brass bell appeared between his eyebrows. Although this yellow bell looked very old and dim, the power it exuded was not to be underestimated. The moment the brass bell appeared, Wang Daoyuan felt a sense of danger, as if his life was in danger. He immediately used the water dragon technique and turned it into a water dragon armor. Then he used the cloud escape to get away from the black-robed old man. As soon as he appeared, the brass bell let out a loud bell sound. Although the bell sound wasn't ear-piercing, it had the effect of directly attacking one's soul. When Wang Daoyuan heard the bell sound, he felt a splitting headache as if someone had smashed his head with a big hammer. This bell sound was indeed too powerful. Just one bell sound was enough to make people faint. This was the result of the two of them being more than 30 meters apart. If they were closer, this sound would have directly injured his soul and he wouldn't have been able to stay awake. Although keeping a distance could reduce the damage caused by the bell sound, it also made it impossible for him to pose a threat to the black-robed old man. Wang Daoyuan had lived for 20 years, but this was the first time he had seen a magic weapon that used sound to attack. This kind of magic weapon was relatively rare and generally had the effect of attacking one's soul. In the family's ancient books, there was only a brief introduction to this kind of magic weapon. There was no way to break it. This was big trouble. Who would have thought that this guy hiding in an underground rat hole would have a magic weapon that could release sound waves? No one knew how to break it. At this point, he was no longer worried about his opponent escaping and coming back to take revenge on the Wang family. Instead, he was worried about whether he would be able to leave alive. The family only mentioned the existence of sound wave magic weapons. They didn't mention any advantages or disadvantages. Who knew how many times this black-robed old man could strike it? If this magic weapon wasn't strenuous, then after a few more strikes, Wang Daoyuan would undoubtedly die. Chapter 70. In a moment of desperation, Wang Daoyuan thought of the physics knowledge he had learned in his previous life. After all, he had received higher education. He had studied sound waves since junior high school, and he was still studying them when he was in university. He was not completely ignorant about sound waves. However, the laws of this world were different from those of his previous life. When he was young, he had tried to use the chemistry knowledge he had learned in his previous life to do something, but without exception he had failed. For example, he once wanted to generate electricity to create thunder talismans. In the end, this world could not generate electricity at all. In this world of cultivation, the principles of matter seemed to be different from his previous world. Therefore, he wasn't sure if the knowledge he had learned in his previous life to weaken sound waves could be used in this world. However, at this time there was no other way. He could only try everything he could. According to what he had learned in his previous life, the transmission of sound required a medium. For example, air and water. However, the transmission of sound across the medium would consume a lot of energy. The greater the difference in density between the two mediums, the more sound energy would be consumed. With less energy, the sound would naturally become softer. For example, if someone was riding a horse in the distance so far that the sound of the horse could no longer be heard, the effect of sound traveling on the ground was better. If one's ear was on the ground, one could clearly hear the sound of horse hooves. However, if one's ear was off the ground, one would not be able to hear it. This was because sound traveled from the ground to the air. It was transmitted across a medium and its energy was depleted. The sound was too soft for human ears to detect. As for the specific principles behind it, it had been several years since he graduated from university in his previous life. 20 years had passed in this life, so he had long forgotten all about it. However, knowing the principle was not important. What was important was knowing what to do. If he knew something like the earth wall technique, he would be able to condense spiritual energy and turn it into a solid object. Then he would be able to create an earth ball to wrap himself up. Unfortunately, none of the talismans he refined were of this type. The armor condensed from the earth armor talisman, the gold armor talisman, and the water dragon armor were all in the form of spiritual energy, not solid. The only non-gaseous thing he could condense was a water ball. Wang Daoyuan made up his mind to take a gamble. If he could weaken the sound wave attack, then he would kill this old bastard. If it didn't work, then he would immediately use a mid-grade tier 2 divine strider talisman to escape. Circulating his water spiritual energy, he controlled the water in the underground river to form a water ball. This layer of water ball didn't wrap around his body tightly, and there were some gaps between it and his body. He was still worried about a single layer of water ball, so he condensed an even bigger water ball and wrapped it around the outside. Between the two layers of water balls, there was a half-foot gap, which was filled with water spiritual energy. The sound of the bell had to pass through the air and travel to the outer layer of the water sphere. Then, it would travel from the outer layer of the water sphere to the space between the two layers of water spheres. Then, it would travel to the inner layer of water sphere. Finally, it would travel to the air between the human and the inner layer of water sphere. Only then could he hear it. If this principle worked, then after 4 consecutive transmediums, the sound of the bell wouldn't even sound like a fart. Not only did Wang Daoyuan not retreat, he even took a few steps forward as if he was about to attack. The black-robed old man controlled the yellow bell to ring again. As a precaution, Wang Daoyuan still took a few big steps back to avoid being severely injured by the sound wave if this principle was ineffective. He would not even have the chance to escape. The two of them were only a few dozen feet apart, and the sound of the bell arrived in an instant. The outer layer of the water sphere was shaken by the sound of the bell. The entire water sphere seemed to be boiling, but the inner layer of the water sphere only had small ripples. When the sound reached Wang Daoyuan's ears, it was like listening to the sound of a bell dozens of miles away. If he did not listen carefully, he would not be able to hear it at all. If this principle worked, Wang Daoyuan was especially happy. As expected, it didn't sound like a fart. "Old man, just wait for me to chop you up." The black-robed old man saw that Wang Daoyuan was not affected by the sound of the bell at all, and was somewhat in disbelief. He activated the yellow bell a few more times, but it still did not have any effect. On the contrary, he was the one who activated the magic tool consecutively in a short period of time. His body was affected by the recoil and he spat out a mouthful of blood. After a few breaths, Wang Daoyuan was already in front of him. The black-robed old man asked in horror, "How can you not be affected by the sound of the bell?" Wang Daoyuan did not reply and directly used the water dragon technique. A water dragon appeared and wrapped around the yellow bell. The water dragon flew towards him with the yellow bell. He took the yellow bell and directly sent it into the space of the spiritual pearl. Even if the black-robed old man had a connection with the magic tool, they were separated by space. No matter how capable he was, he would not be able to sense the yellow bell, let alone activate it. After removing the greatest threat, Wang Daoyuan dispersed the 2 layers of water balls. The water dragon technique once again turned into the water dragon armor. Coupled with the golden armor talisman and the earth armor talisman, he was not afraid that this injured old man could do anything to him. He knew very well that villains died from talking too much. Although he was now a righteous person, he still had to be steady and send this old man to the afterlife first. He took out the profound yang sword and without saying a word, he slashed down. It was unknown if the black-robed old man was injured or something, but his movement technique was terrifyingly weak. He was actually unable to dodge this simple sword strike, and only had time to move his head away. This sword strike landed on his left shoulder. Although the profound yang sword was not very sharp, it still depended on who it was cutting. It was almost enough to cut a python or a crocodile with a thick skin and a thick body of scales, but cutting this old man was like playing with a toy. With one strike, the black-robed old man's entire body was almost split into 2 halves. He did not even struggle before he died. Wang Daoyuan did not choose to search on the spot. He had good things on him, and after killing the enemy he would plunder them on the spot. It was too easy to be plotted against. The defensive talisman and the water dragon armor were still on him. He lifted the black-robed old man's corpse, wanting to take away his storage belt. Suddenly, a spirit beast bag on the black-robed old man's waist opened by itself, and a young rogue cultivator ran out. Wang Daoyuan grabbed him and asked, "Who are you? Why are you here?" Without saying a word, the rogue cultivator turned around and threw out a hidden weapon. Then he turned around and fled. This hidden weapon was the needle-shaped magic tool that was hidden in the black smoke when the black-robed old man spat out black smoke. When the needle hit Wang Daoyuan's earth armor talisman, the earth armor talisman only trembled slightly. This power was far inferior to the one the black-robed old man used. Wang Daoyuan was too lazy to talk nonsense with him. He directly chased after him and struck the rogue cultivator on the back of his neck. The rogue cultivator immediately fainted. After all, he was only a guy at the 2nd level of chi refinement. If he wanted to play tricks in his hands, he could dream on. At this moment, the black-robed old man's corpse was still in his hands. Wang Daoyuan directly opened the 3 spirit beast bags on the corpse, and after making sure that there were no people or monstrous beasts hiding inside, he put the 3 monstrous beasts inside, and together with the storage bags he put them into the spirit pearl space. Then he put the black-robed old man's corpse into a storage bag and hung it on his belt. The yellow bell was still in the space of the spirit pearl. Without knowing if this old man had a backup plan, he directly threw the corpse into the space of the spirit pearl. It was hard to guarantee that this old man would not leave behind a backup plan. In case another rogue cultivator popped out from somewhere and directly controlled the yellow bell, when Wang Daoyuan's divine sense entered the space, it would attack him. When one's divine sense entered and was attacked by the yellow bell, it might implicate one's soul. It was better to be safe than sorry. Even if victory was in his hands, he had to be steady. It didn't matter if it was a little troublesome, but if he was careless and was plotted against, he would really die with regrets. Chapter 71. From the moment Wang Daoyuan was ambushed to the moment he finished off the black-robed old man, it had only taken him 4 hours. It wasn't even midnight yet, so he decided to explore the black-robed old man's cave residence first and return to Mirror Iron Mountain at dawn. When he was thrown to the stone wall by the python, he quickly scanned the place with his spiritual sense and found that there were many restrictions inside. There should be many good things inside. However, he didn't dare to enter rashly. This old man had too many tricks up his sleeve. If he fell to the old man's tricks, it would be a great loss. Wang Daoyuan couldn't understand how the black-robed old man could make wandering cultivators and demon beasts willingly die for him. However, the black-robed old man was crafty, so Wang Daoyuan didn't dare to keep him alive. It wasn't worth risking his life for curiosity. Fortunately, there was a wandering cultivator with a low cultivation. He had 2 layers of defensive talismans and the water dragon armor, so there was no need to fear a backlash. In order to prevent this person from resisting, he could only tie him up and stick a high-grade grade 1 truth-questioning talisman on him. The truth-questioning talisman could suppress the user's soul and make them lose their ability to think. They would answer whatever others asked. Wang Daoyuan activated the truth-questioning talisman and slapped him in the face, waking him up. Unless the power of this individual cultivator's spiritual sense had reached the level of foundation establishment, otherwise, he would definitely answer any question asked by the questioning inner heart talisman. Wang Daoyuan asked, "What's your name? Where are you from? What's your purpose in coming to Mirror Iron Mountain?" The wandering cultivator answered, "My name is Qi Yun. I come from the north of Huiyin Mountain Range, where humans and demons live together. Because I explored a secret realm left behind by a predecessor, I obtained an inherited cultivation method and had a conflict with my companions. After being ambushed, I was heavily injured. My soul was also damaged and my cultivation constantly fell. I could only escape to the south of Huiyin Mountain Range to avoid being hunted down. 10 years ago, I coincidentally came to Mirror Iron Mountain. Because of my heavy injuries, I have been recuperating here. I only recently stabilized my injuries. My body is damaged and it's difficult to recover. I want to find a suitable wandering cultivator to possess." Wang Daoyuan was a little surprised when he heard the rogue cultivator's words. This person looked to be in his 20s, not much older than him. Why would he call himself old man, and say that he wanted to possess Wang Daoyuan's body? That was impossible. Even the soul of a foundation establishment cultivator couldn't possess another person's body. Only after reaching the Violet Palace stage and establishing the Violet Palace would one's soul be strengthened into a divine soul. Only then would it be able to exist for a long period of time outside of the body. Only a god's soul had the ability to forcefully enter another sea of consciousness and carry out possession. Could this old man be a Violet Realm expert? That was impossible. No matter how heavily injured a Violet Palace Realm expert was, his soul had already undergone a qualitative change, and it was absolutely impossible for him to be restrained by a first-grade interrogation talisman. Cheese bodies bodies souls body cheese a person, he's is a body s's. Qiyun replied, "Before I was injured, I was at the peak of foundation establishment. I relied on the inheritance I obtained while exploring a secret realm. There was a divine sense cultivation method that recorded the secret method to possess someone below the Violet Palace realm. Man's tus, s to the point to s's, truths or he, a soul." Although the soul of a peak foundation establishment cultivator was extremely powerful, very close to the soul of a Violet Palace cultivator, no matter how powerful it was, it still hadn't undergone a qualitative change. In essence, it was the same as a Qi condensation cultivator's soul. It was possible for it to fall to the level of a Qi condensation cultivator if it was severely damaged. What followed was a burst of ecstasy. A divine sense cultivation method that could cause peak foundation establishment cultivators to fight over. What kind of level was that? At the very least, it was much stronger than the Wang clan's soul tempering art. Wang Daoyuan continued to ask, "Where's your soul tempering art? What other treasures do you have?" Qiyun replied in a daze, "The soul tempering arts are in my immortal's cave. Apart from the soul tempering arts, I also obtained a few magic tools. However, I was chased away by them, leaving behind only a high-grade Tier 2 brass bell and a high-grade Tier 1 shield." Wang Daoyuan's interest was piqued. He only felt that the brass bell was very powerful and might be a Tier 2 magic tool. He didn't expect it to be a high-grade Tier 2 magic tool. Even though it was especially strenuous for him to utilize a level 2 magic weapon with his cultivation and divine sense, and it might even injure his soul instead, it was still not bad to use as a trump card. Furthermore, this yellow bell was a sound wave attack. It was possible that it could catch an early-stage Foundation establishment cultivator off guard and severely injure them. Wang Daoyuan continued to ask, "There are restrictions in your cave residence. How do I get in?" Qiyun replied, "I have a bead in my storage pouch. It's the hub that controls the formation in the cave. As long as you refine it, you'll be able to control the formation in the entire cave." Wang Daoyuan was in a hurry to go to Qiyun's cave to look for a cultivation technique, so he was too lazy to ask any more questions. He threw away the questioning heart talisman and stuck a soul-subduing talisman on Qiyun's body. This talisman would keep him unconscious for 10 days to half a month before he placed Qiyun into his spirit beast pouch. He took out the storage pouch that he had just seized from the spirit beast pouch. Sure enough, there was a fist-sized blue bead inside. There were also a few jade slips, but he didn't have the time to look at them. Wang Daoyuan dripped a drop of blood essence onto the bead. He then used his divine sense to explore the interior of the bead and forcefully erased the divine sense imprint that Qiyun had left on the bead. He then used his divine sense to leave his own divine sense imprint on the bead. The process was complete. If the magic weapon wasn't in the hands of its owner, the divine sense imprint was like water without a source. The more it was consumed, the less it would be. After successfully making the magic weapon recognize him as its owner, Wang Daoyuan quickly rushed to Qiyun's cave residence. He used his divine sense to explore the interior of the cave residence. He found that the interior space was very large. It seemed to be built using a natural karst cave. He used his magic power and divine sense to activate the blue bead at the same time. The bead emitted a blue light. Wang Daoyuan thought to himself. The formations and restrictions in the cave residence were all closed. In an instant, the restrictions became dim. Wang Daoyuan calmly walked in. He saw that the interior of the cave residence was very large. It occupied an area of more than 50 mu. There were a few luminous pearls hanging above the cave residence. Although these were worthless things for cultivators, they were really good for lighting. In the deepest part of the cave residence, there was a spirit spring. Based on the concentration of spiritual energy it emitted, he could determine that it was a low-grade second-rank spirit spring. The spirit spring was an undeveloped water spirit vein. But apart from its small size, the concentration of spiritual energy around the spirit spring was about the same as water spirit veins of the same rank. Of course, the amount of spiritual energy produced by the spirit spring was much less. The amount of spiritual energy produced by this spirit spring was enough for an early Foundation establishment cultivator and 20 to 30 chi refining cultivators to cultivate. This cave residence could be used as the foundation of a Foundation establishment clan. However, in Wang Daoyuan's eyes, it wasn't particularly precious. After all, the Jade Spring Peak was the clan's foundation chosen by the old ancestor. It had a mid-grade 4th rank spirit vein. Moreover, the Jade Spring Peak spirit vein was a mid-grade spirit vein. Just the spirit eye of the spirit vein, the Jade Dragon Spring, was half a mu in size. The Wang clan's protective formation, the Myriad Water Origin Formation, used the spirit vein as its source of energy. When the Wang clan was involved in the battle of the 3 great sects to destroy the Zhao clan, several golden core cultivators of the 3 great sects attacked for several days without being able to break the formation. Later, under Yang Yang's mediation, the Netherworld sect made concessions and promised not to destroy the Wang clan. The Wang clan submitted to the Netherworld sect. However, the Netherworld sect didn't want their subordinate forces to have such a powerful formation. Thus, they destroyed the Myriad Water Origin Formation. Although the Wang clan still kept the diagram of the Myriad Water Origin Formation and the method to set it up, without a 4th rank formation master, there was no way to set it up. Moreover, the Netherworld sect wouldn't allow the Wang clan to set up the Myriad Water Origin Formation again. In addition, the Netherworld sect also extracted the spirit vein source from the Jade Spring Peak, causing the spirit vein to fall to the 3rd rank high grade, making it unable to support Violet Palace Realm cultivators to break through to the Golden Core stage. It also wasn't enough to support the Myriad Water Origin Formation. Even so, the Jade Spring Peak spirit vein was still second to none in Clear Glass County. The main spirit veins of the Yang clan and the Liang clan were only 3rd rank low grade, and the main spirit vein of the Old Square in Clear Glass City was only 3rd rank middle grade. Moreover, in the future, by extracting the source of other spirit veins and fusing it with the Jade Dragon Spring, there was a possibility that it could recover to a 4th rank spirit vein. The spirit chi of the Jade Dragon Spring was enough for more than 10 late-stage Violet Palace realm cultivators to cultivate. In the past, it was enough to satisfy the cultivation of several middle-stage Golden Core cultivators. Although this spirit spring couldn't be compared to the spirit vein of the Jade Spring Peak, it wasn't completely useless. The spirit spring was an immature spirit vein and had a very high potential for growth. This place wasn't far from the heaven/mountain range, and the spirit chi was abundant. In the future it would have a chance to grow into a spirit vein. The spirit spring water meandered in the cave, nourishing 5 to 6 mu of spirit fields. The fields were all spirit grains. There were many types of spirit grains. The commonly seen spirit grains in the market were similar to millet. The spirit grains in Wang Daoyuan's spirit pearl were also of this type. In addition, there were also grains similar to wheat and rice, respectively called spirit wheat and spirit rice. These 3 types of spirit grains all had different grades. In some large powers there were also some second-rank spirit grains. In the past, the imperial family of the state of Zhao even had third-rank spirit grains. In this cave, all 3 types of spirit grains were planted. The low-lying areas were planted with spirit rice, while the higher areas were planted with spirit wheat and spirit grains. Spirit wheat and spirit rice were rarely seen in the market, and there were also very few people who planted them. Although the production of these 2 types of spirit grains was slightly higher, the requirements for the spirit fields were high. Moreover, the management of the fields was more troublesome, especially spirit rice. Among the 3 types of spirit grains, its production was the highest, but its management was also the most troublesome. The requirements for the growing environment were also the highest. Not only did it require spirit fields, it also needed spirit spring water to water it. In addition, it also needed to frequently draw and drain water. The spring water finally converged at a low-lying area, forming a pool of about 3 mu. The pool water was cold and clear. There were some first-rank seaweeds in the pool. They looked similar to mortal goldfish algae and shone with a metallic light. Wang Daoyuan scooped up a strand of seaweed and carefully observed it, but he didn't find anything special. It should be an ordinary goldfish algae that had become a first-rank spirit grass under the nourishment of spirit energy. He might as well call it goldfish spirit grass. This seaweed didn't have any medicinal value, but it was full of spirit energy and was good as food for spirit fish. The Wang family's Jade Dragon Spring also had ranked seaweed, and it was a second-rank upper-grade seaweed called Jade Dragon Seaweed. It was a special product of the Jade Dragon Spring and couldn't grow in other places. Jade Dragon Seaweed could grow into a third-rank lower-grade spirit plant if it grew for a long time. It could help aquatic demon beasts advance. Legend had it that the dragon fish of the Wang family's ancestor was originally an ordinary second-rank spirit fish. Later, after eating the third-rank Jade Dragon Seaweed, it broke the bloodline shackles and rose to third rank. Moreover, the dragon bloodline in its body, which was already extremely thin, was awakened. Its talent soared and quickly rose to 4th rank. If it hadn't died in the war more than 300 years ago, it was not impossible for a dignified dragon species to become a 5th-rank spirit beast. Because the Jade Dragon Seaweed had such a valuable effect, the family's management of the Jade Dragon Seaweed was extremely strict. Except for the Patriarch and the Grand Elder, no one was allowed to touch it. Moreover, the Jade Dragon Seaweed grew at the bottom of the Jade Dragon Spring. Cultivators below the foundation establishment stage couldn't go down at all. Wang Daoyuan had always wanted to steal a few, but unfortunately he didn't have the ability. If the Jade Dragon Seaweed left the Jade Dragon Spring, the possibility of survival was not high. Even if it was lucky enough to survive, it wouldn't grow well. Moreover, the spiritual field in the spiritual pearl space at this time barely reached 2nd-rank lower grade, and the spirit energy concentration was only 1st-rank upper grade. Although the spiritual pearl space was magical and couldn't be taken lightly, the hope of growing a rare spirit plant like the Jade Dragon Seaweed was still not high. There were many pseudo-spirit fish in the pool, but they were all common species and not ranked. Wang Daoyuan scooped out about half of the goldfish spirit grass and pseudo-spirit fish in the pool and put them into the fish pond in the spiritual pearl space. With these goldfish spirit grass, the Qing River carps and pseudo-spirit fish didn't need to be fed by humans. On both sides of the spring, there were about 100 or 200 first-rank upper-grade orchids. It was a species that Wang Daoyuan had never seen or heard of. It should be a special species bred by this spiritual spring. The leaves of this orchid were more than a foot long, like a long sword. There were quite a lot of similar orchids, so it wasn't rare. However, this flower was quite strange. The flower shape was like a butterfly, the color was like white jade, and it also shone with a faint blue light. When he walked closer, he could smell a delicate fragrance, which made him 100 times more energetic. This flower fragrance should have the effect of waking up and even improving the cultivation of spiritual awareness. He moved more than 20 orchids into the spiritual pearl space and planted them on the edge of the fish pond. This thing may have the effect of improving spiritual awareness, so naturally he had to plant a lot. In addition, since he found such an immortal's cave, he naturally had to go back to report his results to the patriarch and bring some evidence back. There was a simple thatched hut next to the spiritual spring, which should be where Qi Yin lived. The ground in the immortal's cave was uneven, and there were many large and small rocks. The only flat ground was the 5 or 6 mu of spiritual fields and the thatched hut. If he cleaned it up, he could use the spiritual spring water to open up more than 10 mu of spiritual fields. If he raised some spiritual fish and aquatic spiritual plants in the pond, this immortal's cave could support an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator and 30 to 40 Qi refinement cultivators. No matter how one looked at it, it was enough to support a foundation establishment clan. Moreover, this place was extremely hidden, and could be used as a secret base for the Wang clan. In the future, if the Wang clan was in trouble, it could also be used as a refuge, and the clan's good seedlings could be brought here to take refuge. It wouldn't affect their cultivation and they could regroup after the storm passed. Wang Daoyuan didn't expect that he would have completed more than half of the unlimited mission just as he started. The reason why he said it was more than half was because although this place could shelter most of the clan's cultivators and ensure that the inheritance would not be lost, it still belonged to the Netherworld sect. However, this place was still within the territory of the Netherworld sect. If the clan needed to take refuge here in the future, dozens of people would inevitably leave traces behind. If they were discovered, the Netherworld sect would clear this place and they would die. It was still possible to hide a few clansmen, but it was not reliable to send all of them. Wang Daoyuan still needed to continue to the periphery of the heavenly/mountain range to find a safe place for the clan to live. Chapter 72. Wang Daoyuan walked into the hut. The furnishings inside were very simple. There was only a bed and a table. There was an animal skin book on the table. It was the same as the 10,000 spirit atlas that he had seized from Zhang Deshang. Each animal skin was equivalent to a jade slip. He could use his divine sense to imprint information on it. It was much more advanced than a jade slip. He put the animal skin book into the spiritual pearl space and used a trace of his divine sense to explore it. In this way, even if there was a trick in the animal skin book, it would at most destroy a trace of his divine sense. It would not directly hurt his soul. When he used his divine sense to explore the animal skin book, he saw the words Doppelganger Soul Nurturing Technique written on the first page. Wang Daoyuan used his divine sense to explore the second page. This page was the origin of the technique and the modification process. From the records, it could be seen that this divine sense cultivation technique was not something from Beiyuan Xiuxian. It came from another immortal cultivation world. Moreover, it was not the original version. It was modified after a later generation. Even the name of the original creator was not left behind. According to the records, the original creator's soul was damaged. He had no hope of opening the Purple Mansion in this life. He wanted to repair his soul, but it was difficult to find such a miraculous elixir. He collected many ancient books and techniques related to the soul. In the end, he created a secret technique that could repair the soul, the Devouring Soul Nurturing Technique. This secret technique erased other people's spiritual wisdom and will, causing their soul to be in an extremely weak state. The caster divided his own soul and injected the divided part into the victim's sea of consciousness. Because the victim's soul did not have spiritual wisdom and consciousness, it was unable to resist the invasion of the foreign soul. Moreover, the control of the body would be taken away. At this time, the victim became an existence similar to the caster's doppelganger. The caster used the victim's body and soul to nourish the divided soul. When the divided soul was strong to a certain extent, it would devour the original soul of the doppelganger. The caster then took back the divided soul and merged it into himself. In this way, not only could the soul be healed, but it could also greatly improve the cultivation of the divine sense. After many times, the creator finally repaired the damage to his soul and successfully opened the Purple Mansion. However, after the creator's soul recovered, he was unwilling to give up this secret technique. He used this method to strengthen the cultivation of the divine sense. Finally, he cultivated to the Yuanying state. Later on, the matter was exposed and the founder was attacked by the righteous cultivators. In the end, he died. However, the spirit devouring soul cultivation technique was not lost because of this. Instead, it was obtained by an expert who besieged the founder. This expert had a good character and did not use it to harm others. Instead, he used it as a foundation and improved it, renaming it the soul-nurturing doppelganger technique. Although the improved secret technique also split the soul and used the clone to nurture the soul, the clone did not have to be a human. Any spiritual creature with a soul would do. The split soul would only rely on the clone to grow stronger. It would not devour the soul of the clone. The soul of the clone could still be reincarnated. Therefore, this secret technique was no longer in the category of evil cultivation methods. It could be considered a divine sense cultivation method that could repair the damage to the soul. Furthermore, the doppelganger soul nurturing technique had improved the method of erasing the doppelganger's intelligence and consciousness, making the doppelganger's soul more stable. Even without a split soul, the doppelganger's intelligence would only be that of an infant, and it would still be able to survive. The same doppelganger could be used repeatedly. If the original split soul was strong enough, a new split soul could be used to replace the strong split soul. This secret technique could split the soul and fuse it again. It could be used together with the puppet technique, beast taming technique, and corpse refining technique. That expert's descendant also used this secret technique as a foundation to establish the imperial regency. The imperial regency dominated the cultivation world with the puppet technique, beast taming technique, and corpse refining technique, suppressing all the other forces. However, the hunter would shoot the bird that sticks out. The imperial regency was besieged by all the major forces. In the end, it was exterminated, and its disciples fled in all directions. One of the foundation establishment disciples fled to the remote Beiyuan Xiuxian. However, this disciple's status was not high. He was only qualified to cultivate the doppelganger soul nurturing technique after he reached the foundation establishment realm. Furthermore, before he could achieve anything with his cultivation, he was caught up in the destruction of his sect. He was not qualified to obtain the secret technique manual. He could only try to restore the doppelganger soul nurturing technique based on what he had learned and the rumors about the technique. Unfortunately, his cultivation was too low and he had learned too little. It was difficult for him to restore his original appearance. Although the doppelganger soul nurturing technique that he restored could still increase the cultivation of his divine sense, it no longer had the effect of repairing damaged souls. Although his cultivation had increased and he had deduced the contents of the Purple Palace realm, his knowledge was still too lacking compared to the senior who had modified the doppelganger soul nurturing technique. The difference between the repaired version and the complete version was like heaven and earth. Although the clone refined from the repaired version could continue to cultivate and increase the cultivation of the divine sense, the split soul could not perfectly fuse with the original soul of the clone. The clone's cultivation would increase very slowly, and its ability to cultivate techniques and learn the various arts of cultivation would be greatly reduced. It would be easier to encounter bottlenecks and it would be extremely difficult to break through the bottleneck. Due to the incomplete soul, the clone could not establish a Purple Palace. If one wanted to obtain a Purple Palace realm clone, they would have to deal with a Purple Palace realm cultivator. However, the soul of a Purple Palace realm cultivator had already undergone a qualitative change, becoming a divine soul. Using the original divine sense attack secret technique to deal with a Purple Palace realm cultivator would not have a high success rate. Either they were unable to completely annihilate the clone's consciousness, or they used too much strength and directly killed the clone. If they were unable to completely annihilate the clone's consciousness, then when the split soul fused with the clone, it would be easy to cause the soul of the clone to resist, causing the split soul to be directly annihilated and cause permanent damage to the soul. Although spirit medicines that repaired the damage of the soul were rare, they weren't difficult to find for some great powers. On the other hand, spirit medicines that repaired the soul of a Purple Palace realm cultivator were especially rare, and all of them were rare treasures that could only be chanced upon by luck. The risk of using a Purple Palace realm cultivator to refine a clone was truly too great. Thus, this disciple started to take an unconventional path. He no longer pursued strengthening the cultivation of his divine sense, and instead used his clone as his main method of combat. He mainly cultivated corpse refinement techniques and used his split soul to control the corpse refinement. The human and the corpse refinement were of one mind, and their cooperation was seamless. Coupled with the assistance of formations, their combat strength rose sharply, and they could be said to be invincible amongst their peers. Later on, he broke through to the Golden Core realm, controlled over 100 refined corpses, and created the Myriad Corpse Grand Formation, causing him to become illustrious amongst Golden Core realm cultivators and obtain the title of Myriad Corpse Taoist. When Myriad Corpse Taoist cultivation reached the late Golden Core realm, there was no one below Yuanying who was a match for him. Later on, because he offended too many powers, he was besieged and seriously injured by dozens of Golden Core Realm cultivators. After escaping, he hid in a secret realm and finally passed away. When Qi-yun and the others explored the secret realm, they accidentally found the place where myriad corpse Taoists passed away. The majority of the refined corpses, magic tools and secret manuals left behind by myriad corpse Taoists were obtained by their companions. He only obtained a small portion of the magic tools, as well as myriad corpse Taoists' main cultivation technique and some secret techniques, which led to the subsequent events. The third page of the Beast Book recorded the main text of the doppelganger soul nurturing technique, which included the method of using one's divine sense to destroy the consciousness and consciousness of the clone, the secret technique to fuse the main soul with the split soul, and the method to nurture the split soul and the main soul. There were a few more pages at the back of the Beast Book that recorded the secret techniques derived from the doppelganger soul nurturing technique. For example, Qi-yun's foundation establishment secret technique was to first transfer a split soul into the main body of the clone. After the split soul and the clone adapted to each other, the main soul would be transferred into the clone and replace the original soul of the clone. However, the process of Qi-yun's main soul being transferred into the clone was completed by force. Since his main body was killed, he could only entrust his main soul into the clone before the clone and the split soul could fully adapt. The rogue cultivator and the 4 monster beasts from before were all Qi-yun's clones, so they were able to sacrifice their lives to block the blade for their main body. In addition to the secret techniques derived from the doppelganger soul nurturing technique, there were also some corpse cultivation techniques and secret techniques collected by myriad corpse Taoist, including the myriad corpse grand array. Wang Daoyuan wasn't interested in refining corpses. In his previous life, he had been influenced by the old Taoist priest and was greatly influenced by traditional culture. Traditional culture emphasized that the dead were the most important. No matter how great a crime was, death was atonement. Even if one wanted to take revenge and even exterminate the enemy's entire clan, they would only do so against the living. There was still a minimum of respect for corpses. Therefore, he couldn't accept things like refining corpses. Chapter 73. Although this was a golden core inheritance, Wang Daoyuan didn't care about it. His family also had a golden core inheritance. The Wang family's ancestor was also a leader among golden cores. The golden core elders of the cruel Sun Palace who died in battle could testify to this. He needed a cultivation method that was suitable for him, not a brainless choice. The doppelganger soul nourishing technique was extremely suitable for him. Although the version repaired by the 10,000 corpse spiritual master was far inferior to the original, it was still an extremely powerful divine sense cultivation method. In terms of soul nourishing technique alone, the Wang family's soul tempering secret art was far superior. As long as it wasn't used on innocent people, it could be regarded as a means of torturing the enemy. After all, the clone was also a living person. In addition to the fact that his heart couldn't accept corpse refining, there was also the problem of resources. He had the space of the spirit bead, which could provide a large number of spirit herbs. It was better to walk the path of beast taming than the path of corpse refining. Spirit beasts needed spirit herbs to become stronger, and he could provide them in large quantities. If he walked the path of corpse refining, the space of the spirit bead couldn't produce materials to strengthen corpse refining. Wang Daoyuan wouldn't choose corpse refining, nor would he major in beast taming. Whether it was corpse refining or beast taming, they all relied on external objects. His own strength was the most important. In the future, he would also choose spirit beasts with special value or use them as food. Of course, beast taming was extremely powerful in fighting enemies. Moreover, he had the beast taming secret method previously snatched from Zhang Deshang, so using beast taming as an auxiliary method was not a big deal. The doppelganger soul nourishing technique was definitely a huge treasure for Wang Daoyuan. Its value was not in improving the power of divine sense, but in the clone itself. Wang Daoyuan, as the owner of the space of the spirit bead, although his divine sense could do some simple work in the space. For example, planting spirit herbs and collecting spirit herbs could be done by consuming some divine sense power. However, some more complicated work couldn't be done. For example, using yellow cloud grass to make talisman paper. If he used his divine sense power in the space, he was afraid that it wouldn't take long for his divine sense power to be exhausted. But with a clone it was different. He could use his divided soul to control the clone to make talisman paper. Coupled with the space's 20x time flow, he would never run out of talisman paper in the future. If he could let his clone learn how to refine talismans, it would be even easier. He wouldn't even have to do it himself. Moreover, the spirit grains planted in the space of the spiritual pearl would produce a large amount of straw every time. These straw were also rich in spiritual energy and could be used to feed the herbivorous spirit beasts. However, Wang Daoyuan didn't have the time to take care of it. If no one took care of it, the herbivorous spirit beasts would destroy the entire space of the spiritual bead. They could only throw large amounts of straw directly into the spiritual fields and watch the straw slowly rot. It was simply a waste of natural resources. In addition, Wang Daoyuan's consciousness had to enter the space of the spiritual pearl many times every day to feed the Qing River carp and harvest the spirit grains. Although it didn't last long each time, it was troublesome if it happened too many times. If he had a clone, these problems could be easily solved. He could leave everything to his clone. In addition to searching for phase and enriching the variety of phase in the spirit bead space, he only needed to lie down and take the resources produced by the space. In the future, when he had more avatars, he would be able to produce talismans, pills, and other materials on a large scale with the help of the 20-fold time flow. At that time, he wouldn't feel distressed if he casually threw resources at people. Wang Daoyuan walked out of the thatched cottage and transplanted a few stalks of spirit wheat from the spiritual fields into the space of the spiritual pearl. In the future, when the spirit wheat was harvested, he could grind it to make some noodles. There was no noodles in this world. Cultivators mainly ate spirit grains, and those who ate spirit wheat directly ate wheat rice. They didn't know how to grind the noodles at all. Even mortals who didn't know how to cultivate usually ate millet or rice for their meals. In the future, when there was enough spirit wheat, he must eat dumplings. He hadn't eaten dumplings for 20 years. Moreover, developing noodles could also bring more business to the drunken immortal restaurant. As for the spirit rice, there was no spirit spring in the space, so the harvest wouldn't be too good. The Jade Spring Peak was very suitable for growing spirit rice, but the clansmen who managed the spiritual fields also had to cultivate. Growing spirit rice was too time-consuming. In the future, he could recruit some mortals to help him grow it. Next, he wasn't in a hurry to cultivate the clone soul nurturing technique. To cultivate this secret technique, he had to split his soul. Although it was quiet here, he was still unfamiliar with the place. Who knew if there were any dangers in the underground river or the immortal's cave? It was more reliable to return to the Jade Spring Peak to cultivate. Moreover, he had just suffered an attack from the brass bell. His head was still aching, so his soul might have been injured. If he cultivated the clone soul nurturing technique and split his soul, it would be adding injury to injury. It would be troublesome if permanent damage was left. The most important thing now was to refine the brass bell. With this brass bell, he wouldn't be afraid of anyone below the Foundation Establishment realm. Moreover, the sound wave attack was an area of effect attack. Unless the opponent was a Foundation Establishment cultivator who was already prepared and directly fled on their flying swords, the sound of the bell would definitely kill a large number of people. As long as the opponent didn't fly on their magic tools, even if they used an escape technique, they wouldn't be able to escape the sound wave attack. Of course, he couldn't casually take out the brass bell. According to the information he got from Qi Yun, his companion had been chasing after him and might have also come to the south of Mount Huiyin. The news of Wang Daoyuan using the brass bell reached that person's ears. He would definitely suspect that the inheritance of the 10,000 corpse spiritual master had fallen into his hands. Since he was able to explore the secret realm with Qi Yun, who was at the peak of the Foundation Establishment realm, his cultivation was about the same. It wasn't a good thing to be remembered by a peak Foundation Establishment cultivator. Moreover, that person also had a pile of refined corpses and magic tools left behind by the 10,000 corpse spiritual master. This brass bell could only be used as a final trump card. Unless it was a last resort, he absolutely couldn't use it. Once he used it, he had to make sure that no living person saw it. Although he couldn't use it, he still had to refine it. Not using a trump card and not having one were two completely different things. Wang Daoyuan took out the brass bell and carefully observed it. He saw that the brass bell was engraved with complicated patterns and the words Soul Extinguisher. It seemed that this bell's name should be the Soul Extinguisher Bell. He dripped a drop of blood essence on the Soul Extinguisher Bell and then used his spiritual sense to explore the bell, looking for the spiritual sense brand left behind by Qi Yun. He completely obliterated it and then left his own spiritual sense brand. This Soul Extinguisher Bell was worthy of being a high-grade second-rank magic tool. It was very difficult to obliterate the spiritual sense brand. It took more than half an hour to completely obliterate the spiritual sense brand left by Qi Yun. Leaving his own spiritual sense brand was not a simple matter. It took nearly 2 hours to complete the master recognition. After the Soul Extinguisher Bell recognized its master, Wang Daoyuan also had some understanding of the soul extinguisher bell. This was a magic tool with both offensive and defensive capabilities. The main attack was a sound wave attack. When the sound wave attack was launched, the soul extinguisher bell would automatically arrange a layer of defensive light shield around the owner's body to avoid being hurt by the sound wave attack. The person who made this magic tool was very thoughtful to avoid the sound wave attack from hurting the owner. Moreover, the person who made this magic tool also knew how to break the sound wave attack. When the soul extinguisher bell was activated for defense, all the power of the soul extinguisher bell would be used to form a defensive light shield. It was much stronger than the defensive light shield used for sound wave attacks. It could block the full blow of a cultivator in the early stage of the foundation establishment stage without any pressure. Although the soul extinguisher bell was a high-grade second-rank magic tool, the threshold to use it was not high. It could be easily activated by the spiritual sense and spiritual power of a cultivator in the late stage of the qi refining stage. Although the power was only 10 or 20%, it was still very impressive. Wang Daoyuan tried to activate the soul extinguisher bell to send out a sound wave attack. He only activated it once and it consumed about 30% of his spiritual sense power. Wang Daoyuan was very glad. When he cracked the sound wave attack, Qi Yun panicked and activated the soul extinguisher bell a few more times. It should have consumed a lot of spiritual sense power. Otherwise, the questioning heart talisman would not be able to control Qi Yun at all. Unlike the general second-rank magic tool, the soul extinguisher bell could be stored in the sea of consciousness. When used, the concealment was stronger. Moreover, with the soul extinguisher bell in the sea of consciousness, it could also defend against spiritual sense attacks. Chapter 74. Wang Daoyuan meditated among the orchids to restore his divine sense, and his recovery speed was indeed much faster than usual. After fully recovering, he felt that his divine sense had been strengthened a little. Although it was very insignificant, if he cultivated his divine sense in the orchids for a long time, the benefits would be considerable. The fragrance of the orchids had an obvious effect of restoring and strengthening divine sense. This was just the fragrance of the flowers. If he used orchids as raw materials to refine pills, the effect should be better. Calculating the time, it was almost dawn outside. If the people outside found that he was missing, another group of people would be scared away. According to the records of the doppelganger soul-nourishing technique, the doppelganger and the main body were not far apart so they could communicate with each other. Wang Daoyuan was not sure if Qi Yun's doppelganger knew that the main body had been taken. If they knew, they would definitely want to escape. Although these doppelganger were mortals and could not cultivate to become stronger, they knew the secret of the underground cave and might know that Wang Daoyuan had obtained the doppelganger soul-nourishing technique. If they revealed it, Wang Daoyuan would be in danger. In order to catch all of Qi Yun's doppelganger in one fell swoop, he had to go back before people found out that he was missing. Out of the underground cave, Wang Daoyuan immediately used the teleport talisman to quickly rush to the bottom of the Mirror Iron Mountain, and then used the Earth Escape talisman to return to the Mine Tunnel Lounge. At this time, the miners were still asleep, so Wang Daoyuan went straight to the single room of the junior manager. The junior manager was a little surprised to see him come back in one piece. Now Wang Daoyuan was relieved, which meant that the doppelganger did not know that the main body had been taken. Wang Daoyuan teased, "Qi Yun Daoyu, how have you been?" Hearing this, the junior manager got up and was about to escape. Unfortunately, this doppelganger was just an ordinary person. How could it escape from Wang Daoyuan? Wang Daoyuan directly put it down and did not dare to use the truth-questioning talisman. After all, this doppelganger was an ordinary person. If the truth-questioning talisman was used, the doppelganger's soul might directly collapse. Wang Daoyuan took out the knockout powder that smelled faintly of alcohol from the single room. He released Dahe and let Dahe smell it. "Dahe, find everyone who has this on them." Soon, Dahe searched around and found another 5 people who were drugged. They were the chief steward of the mining company and 4 junior stewards. Wang Daoyuan brought the 6 of them to his 8th uncle Wang Shoujiang's Immortal's Cave. Wang Daoxing was also temporarily squeezed in here. When Wang Shoujiang saw that Wang Daoyuan had brought 6 people here, he asked, "Daoyuan, why did you bring the stewards here?" Wang Daoyuan replied, "8th uncle, didn't I help you investigate the missing miners? The culprits are all here." The 5 of them who were still conscious wanted to quibble. Wang Daoyuan asked, "5 Qi Yun Daoyu, can you still sense where the primary soul is?" Then he took Qi Yun, who was still unconscious, out of the spiritual beast bag. The 5 clones immediately sensed the location of the primary soul and were shocked. Wang Daoyuan used the questioning talisman on Qi Yun's primary soul again and asked, Qi Yun Daoyu, how many clones did you hide in the Mirror Iron Mountain? Are they all here? Qi Yun was restrained as soon as he woke up. He replied in a daze, there are 6 of them. It's these 6. As soon as he answered, Wang Daoyuan stuck the soul-subduing talisman on Qi Yun again and put him in the spiritual beast bag. Then he said to Wang Daoxing, second brother, knock these 5 sober ones out. Be gentle. Don't kill them. Wang Daoxing was very satisfied with this job. I like this job. He was very efficient. In less than a second, all 5 of them had fainted. Wang Daoyuan picked up one of them and used his divine sense to invade his sea of consciousness. Because this person was unconscious and was immortal, his soul did not resist. He used the method recorded in the clone soul nurturing technique to extract the clones of Qi Yun's soul. Soon, the clones of the 6 people were extracted. Wang Daoyuan was holding 6 pearls that seemed real and illusory at the same time. There was a ferocious human face on them. Wang Daoyuan handed the 6 pearls to Wang Shoujiang and said, "Eighth uncle, burn these things with fire." Wang Shoujiang mainly cultivated the fire attribute. Fire was a yang element and was extremely destructive to the soul. Wang Shoujiang did not hesitate to take the 6 clones. He condensed a fireball in his palm and wrapped the clones inside. After a series of wails, the 6 clones disappeared without a trace. Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands to Wang Shoujiang and said, "The matter of the missing miners is over. Eighth uncle and second brother, please don't tell anyone about what you saw today. This matter is very important. I need to return to the family and report it to the patriarch. Explain to the miners that these people were controlled by evil cultivators to capture miners and feed them to demon beasts. The demon beasts were killed and the evil cultivators escaped." He took out the corpses of 4 demon beasts from the spirit beast pouch and said, "Take these 4 evil beasts as evidence. Also, there might be something wrong with the new rogue cultivators. I need to use the questioning talisman to interrogate them." Wang Shoujiang was a little surprised. He put away the demon beast corpses and said, "You solved such a troublesome matter so easily?" Wang Daoxing interrupted, "Eighth uncle, don't tell me how Beiyuan solved it. Now, I don't understand what he's saying to 12th uncle. Just do as he says. We're here to beat people up. We'll beat whoever he tells us to." "You're a blockhead. Don't count me in." Wang Shoujiang said, "Everyone has their own secrets. Eighth uncle won't ask too much. I'll bring those rogue cultivators here. You can interrogate them however you want. Also, how should we deal with these 6 people? They're close relatives of our Wang family's cultivators. We can't just ignore them." Wang Daoyuan replied, "These 6 people's souls were injured by evil cultivators. Their lives are not in danger, but their intelligence is about the same as a newborn child. I can't guarantee how much they can recover in the future." Wang Shoujiang sighed and said, "Then let's send them all home and give them some compensation. I'll go call those rogue cultivators over." Wang Shoujiang's main cultivation method was fire attribute, so he was also very energetic. After a while he came back with 5 rogue cultivators including Lin Yuan. When Lin Yuan saw Wang Daoyuan he asked, "Daoyu Huang is also here?" Wang Daoyuan didn't bother with him and said to the 5 rogue cultivators, "The culprit behind the miner's disappearance was injured by me and escaped, but it's inevitable that there will be accomplices. You're all cultivators. If there are accomplices among you, you'll be a great threat to Mirror Iron Mountain. For the safety of Mirror Iron Mountain and for your innocence, I'll use the truth talisman on you. Please don't worry. I'll only ask about your origins and your purpose in coming to Mirror Iron Mountain. If there are no problems, the Wang family will give you 10 spirit stones as compensation." Hearing this, 3 of the 5 rogue cultivators smiled happily. 2 of them had unnatural expressions. Lin Yuan was one of them. 4 cultivators, the truth talisman would only cause them to feel tired for a short period of time. It wouldn't cause any harm. The 10 spirit stones would be enough to buy 50 kilograms of spirit grains. The rogue cultivators who came to make a living were naturally very happy. As for the 2 with unnatural expressions, they probably had other plans. Chapter 75. Wang Daoyuan asked his second brother, Wang Daoxing, to bring the 2 people with unnatural expressions out. The remaining 3 had no abnormalities, so the possibility of them being suspicious was not high. Asking them all at once was not a problem. He asked all 3 of them and they were all ordinary loose cultivators. After asking, the 3 of them took the spirit stones and left happily. Even the aftereffects of using the truth questioning talisman seemed to have disappeared. Next, Wang Daoyuan asked Lin Yuan to come in and stuck the truth questioning talisman on him. He asked, "What's your name and where are you from?" Lin Yuan replied, "My name is Liang Zixing and I'm from Qingyun Peak." Wang Daoyuan and Wang Shoujiang were a little surprised. They really caught someone with bad intentions. Qingyun Peak was where the Liang clan was located, and the younger generation of the Liang clan was named Zixing. Wang Daoyuan did not ask any more questions. Taking advantage of Liang Zixing being restrained, he hit the back of his neck and knocked him out. He stuck the soul-subduing talisman on him, took the storage bag from his waist, and put it into a spirit beast bag. Wang Shoujiang praised, "Daoyuan, you're still the most attentive. It seems like the Liang clan has not given up and still wants to take over our Wang clan's property." Wang Daoyuan laughed. "This kid came in with me and when he saw me he said he wanted to marry into the Wang clan. Even if a normal loose cultivator really wanted to marry into the Wang clan, why would he spread it around? The Liang clan should have the intention to expand, so they sent people to scout first." After saying that, he asked Wang Daoxing to bring the remaining person in. This person saw Liang Zixing come in but did not go out. He was a little scared and wanted to resist. But in Wang Daoxing's hands he could not do anything. Wang Daoxing restrained him, and Wang Daoyuan stuck the truth-questioning talisman on him. He asked, "What's your name and where are you from?" This loose cultivator replied, "My name is Qin Liang and I'm from Green Willow Continent." Wang Daoyuan asked his eighth uncle Wang Shoujiang, "Where is Green Willow Continent?" Wang Shoujiang replied, "Upstream of the clear stream outside the sky/mountain range, there is a very large basin. The terrain is low and many streams converge, forming a large lake. There was a green willow tree in the middle of the lake. It had lived for an unknown number of years. Sand had accumulated near its roots, gradually forming a small island. After countless years, the small island had grown into a large island with a radius of several hundred li. It was called the Green Willow Island, and several loose cultivators of the foundation establishment stage worked together to establish a small market. Thus, many rogue cultivators have gathered in Green Willow Province, and many of them are even wanted by the three great sections." As soon as he finished speaking, Wang Shoujiang removed the heart-questioning talisman from Chen Liang's forehead and said, "May I know why Green Willow Region's Chen Daoyu has come here? The Wang family has no business dealings with Green Willow Province and has never had any enmity with them. Could it be that the Daoyu of Green Willow Province wants to rob Mirror Iron Mountain?" When Chen Liang heard this, he knew that his identity had been exposed. He might be handed over to the Netherworld sect. He was unyielding, neither servile nor overbearing. "Daoyu, why don't you continue to use the truth talisman?" Wang Shoujiang said, "My Wang family has no intention of becoming enemies with Green Willow Province. Since we know that Daoyu is from Green Willow Province, we naturally have to treat you with respect. However, why did Green Willow Province send Daoyu here? Daoyu, please tell us." Chen Liang saw that Wang Shoujiang had no intention of killing him and said, "My master told me to contact the Wang family and want to do business with you. I have no connections, so I can only go to Mirror Iron Mountain to scout for information." Wang Shoujiang asked with a strange expression, "Could it be that your master doesn't know about the Netherworld sect's ban? The Netherworld sect forbids its subordinate forces from doing business with rogue cultivators exiled in Sky Beheading Mountain Range. My Wang family's neck is not as hard as the Netherworld sect's blade. Please forgive us for not daring to do this business." Chen Liang hurriedly replied, "Of course my master knows about the Netherworld sect's ban. However, this ban is only superficial. In reality, there are many clans that have dealings with Green Willow Province. Some of the Netherworld sect's elders' clans are no exception. Green Willow Province is located in the periphery of Sky Beheading Mountain Range. Although the conditions are better, it is far from being as peaceful as Clearglass Prefecture. Spirit herbs cannot be grown on a large scale in a place where spirit beasts run rampant. There is not even enough spirit grains to eat. In order to find spirit items, the cultivators of Green Willow Province have to go deep into the territory of spirit beasts. Coupled with the lack of magic tools, spirit talismans and pills, the cultivators who go hunting in the mountains suffer heavy losses. My master doesn't expect the Wang family to sell anything good. He only wants the Wang family to sell some spirit grains, pills and spirit talismans. If the Wang family is afraid of being implicated, Green Willow Province can send people to take the goods. The Wang family selling things to rogue cultivators in the Netherworld sect's territory is not violating the Netherworld sect's ban, right?" Wang Shoujiang pondered. Wang Daoyuan asked, "Then what can my Wang family get from doing business with Green Willow Province? Don't talk to me about spirit stones. I can get these things in Clear Glass Market. There is no risk of losing my head." Chen Liang looked at Wang Daoyuan and felt that this young man was not easy to deal with. He smiled and said, "Daoyu, don't worry. How can this kind of business only use spirit stones? My master said that we can use spirit stones or barter. We can use the spirit herbs and ores in the periphery of Sky Beheading Mountain Range to exchange for Wang family's spirit grains, spirit talismans and pills. Also, if the Wang family is interested in Green Willow Province Market, my master can allow the Wang family to open a shop there." Wang Shoujiang was moved and said, "I don't have the authority to agree to this. I need to ask the clan leader. In order to prevent the news from leaking, Daoyu will have to stay at Mirror Iron Mountain for a few days." Saying this, Wang Shoujiang gave Chen Liang 10 spirit stones. Chen Liang took the spirit stones, and like the previous 3 rogue cultivators, he went out in high spirits. Wang Shoujiang asked Wang Daoyuan, "Daoyuan, what do you think about cooperating with Green Willow Province?" Wang Daoyuan thought for a moment and replied, "There is no loss in this matter. If we can use spirit grains and other resources to exchange for resources in Sky Beheading Mountain Range, it will be a great profit. Because the Foundation Establishment Pill will be auctioned in a year, all the clans are desperately selling their resources. Business is not good. If we can do business with Green Willow Province, it will be an excellent source of income. Our Wang family will have a greater chance of getting a Foundation Establishment Pill. However, I don't know much about Green Willow Province and can't make an accurate judgment. It's better to go back and ask the clan leader." Wang Shoujiang nodded and said, "Let's do it like that. I need to guard Mirror Iron Mountain and can't leave my post. Daoxing is unreliable, you should go back to the clan." Wang Daoxing protested, "How am I unreliable? Did I make a mistake when I hit people?" The two looked at him with disdain and ignored him. Wang Daoyuan replied, "All right, I'll go back. I also need to report the missing people. I'll do both at the same time. There's no time to lose, I'll go now." Wang Shoujiang said, "Be careful on the road. You have Liang Zixing in your spirit beast pouch. Be careful when you pass through the Liang family's territory. It won't be easy if the Liang family finds you." "Eighth uncle, don't worry. I'll be careful." Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands and said, "I'll choose which path to take based on the situation. If there's no other way, I can take the land route back to Jade Spring Peak." After bidding farewell to eighth uncle, Wang Daoyuan left Mirror Iron Mountain. He took the clan's hematite ship downstream and disembarked at Qingxi village. It wasn't that he was delaying the journey, but that he had been injured by the soul-extinguishing bell when he was fighting with Qi Yun. At first, he was tense and didn't think much of it even though he felt a little uncomfortable. Only when he understood the situation and relaxed did he feel a splitting headache and a dull ache in his organs. His injuries weren't much of a problem. He just needed to eat some healing pills. His soul being damaged was no small matter. If it wasn't handled well, it might affect his future path. For the sake of his future, he temporarily stayed at home and recovered from his soul injuries. Chapter 76. The damage to the soul could be major or minor. If it was minor, it could be recovered after a good rest. If it was serious, it would require a secret technique or spiritual medicine to recover the soul. If he was in a hurry to return to the family and encountered enemies on the way, he would need to fight. If he used his divine sense too much, even a minor injury would become a serious injury. The doppelganger soul nurturing technique passed down by the 10,000 corpse sage was incomplete and did not have the ability to recover the soul. With his strength, it was difficult to obtain a spiritual medicine that could recover the soul. If he was seriously injured, it would be more difficult for him to break through in the future. It would be impossible for him to open up the Purple Mansion, let alone live forever. When he returned home to Qingxi village, he released Dahe. Dahe immediately returned to the gatehouse and did his job of guarding the door. As soon as he returned home, his parents came to ask about his well-being. Madame Wang Yang saw that her son's face was not right and asked with concern, "Erwa, why do you look so pale?" He replied, "I was carrying out a family mission at the Mirror Iron Mountain and was slightly injured. I'll be fine after resting at home for a few days." His parents were very worried, but they could not help. They could only worry. The second generation of the family had 3 sons, and the third generation only had 1 brat. He had no daughter, and his father had not taken in a concubine, so the backyard had always been empty. He directly lived in the backyard to avoid being disturbed. After choosing a place to live, Wang Daoyuan put a few orchids in the transplanted space into a flower pot and moved them out of the spiritual pearl space. He lay on the bed every day with a few pots of orchids beside the bed. Although he was not sure if the orchids had the effect of directly recovering the soul, the fragrance of the flowers could recover and improve the divine sense. It also had a positive effect on the soul, so their functions were similar. Smelling the fragrance of the flowers every day could more or less help. He did not know if the soul injury was really not deep or if the fragrance of the orchids had taken effect. After 5 or 6 days, the soul injury was basically healed. At this time, he dared to release his divine sense to explore the surroundings. He had heard that the village was very lively. Now that he scanned with his divine sense, he found that they were testing the spiritual roots of the 10-year-old children in the village. The person who came to test the spiritual roots was his 5th brother, Wang Daozong. Wang Daozong's aptitude was average. His main spiritual root was the wood attribute, and he walked the path of spiritual plants. He put the orchids back into the spiritual pearl space, walked out of the backyard and greeted his parents. Seeing that their son's complexion was good, the 2 elders were relieved. Wang Daoyuan came to the village entrance and saw a group of people surrounding a white-robed youth. The youth was holding a palm-sized white jade plate. A few children around the age of 10 were lining up beside him. The child at the front of the line placed his hand on the white jade plate. The young man injected spiritual energy into the white jade plate. The white jade plate flickered slightly, but there was no change. The young man shook his head and said, "This child doesn't have a spirit root." That child's parents walked away with their child dejectedly, and the next child continued to have his spirit roots tested. He didn't step forward to disturb them. This was the first time he had seen such a scene. After all, he had been directly brought back to Jade Spring Peak by his 12th uncle, Wang Shui, when he was 5 years old. The spirit roots test had also been carried out in secret by several elders. Soon it was the last child's turn. It was a girl. Wang Daozong injected some spirit energy into the white jade plate, causing it to flicker for a while. Suddenly, black, white, and green pillars of light appeared on the white jade plate. They represented the 3 attributes of water, metal, and wood respectively. The black pillar of light was the highest, reaching a little more than 5 inches. Wang Daozong revealed a happy expression and said, "Our luck this year is pretty good. We've met a medium seedling." The Wang clan had a generation every 50 years, and there were usually only 20 to 30 cultivators in each generation. On average, there would only be 1 cultivator every 2 years. Among them, more than a third were the descendants of the clan's cultivators. The probability of ordinary clan members becoming cultivators was very low. Being able to meet one was already considered good luck. The girl's parents held her hand and kowtowed to Wang Daozong to express their gratitude. Wang Daozong hurriedly stopped them and said, "There's no need for that. This child will follow me back to the clan and pay respects to the ancestral hall. She'll be my little sister, so there's no need for such formalities. Right, little sister, from now on call me 5th brother." The little girl shyly shouted, "5th brother?" Wang Daozong smiled and agreed. Seeing that he was done, Wang Daoyuan walked over and called out, "5th brother, why is it our generation's turn to test for spirit roots?" Wang Daozong turned around and saw him. He smiled and said, "Oh, it's 7th brother. In the past few years the clan has opened 2 new shops, so we're short on manpower. A while ago, 7th great-uncle unfortunately met with a mishap, so we don't have enough manpower. That's why I was sent out. Right, 7th brother, why are you here?" Wang Daoyuan replied, "Before I joined the clan I was from this village. A few days ago I was injured at Mirror Iron Mountain, so I recuperated here for a few days. Just as I recovered I met 5th brother." After saying that, Wang Daoyuan said to the little girl whose spirit roots had just been tested, "Little sister, call me 7th brother." The little girl obediently called him 7th brother. "Since you called me 7th brother, I'll give you a greeting gift." He took out a first-level upper-grade Divine Strider talisman. "This is a talisman for escaping. You'll use it when you start cultivating." Then he said to Wang Daozong, "5th brother, I have some first-level lower-grade crocodile meat here. Are you interested?" Of course, Wang Daozong was interested. The meat of a first-level demonic beast was very beneficial to his cultivation. He hurriedly said, "How can I not be interested?" Wang Daoyuan took 5th brother home. Wang Daozong turned to the little girl and said, "Little sister, spend more time with your parents. I'll take you to the clan in the afternoon. You won't be able to see your parents before you turn 20. When they walked to the door, Wang Daozong looked at Dahe and said, "7th brother, your family is so magnificent that you use a first-level lower-grade spirit beast to guard the door." Wang Daoyuan said with a smile, "When I came back a while ago, Dahe had just advanced. This crocodile wanted to take advantage of Dahe's advancement, so I caught it. At that time, 2nd brother happened to pass by, so I gave him half of the crocodile meat." When they entered the inner courtyard, Wang Fu saw that his son had brought an immortal, so he immediately ordered his wife and daughter-in-law to prepare food. Wang Daoyuan took Wang Daozong to the main hall and called Sanhua. He said, "Fifth brother, lend me the qi testing disc. My little brother is 9 years old. I'll test his spiritual root." Wang Daozong asked, "He's not 10 years old. Can he do it?" Wang Daoyuan said with a smile, "My little brother's physique is different from ordinary people. He can eat 5 kilograms of spiritual grains for a meal. Do you think his physique is qualified?" Wang Daozong was surprised. "My God, this little guy can eat as much as 5 cultivators. His physique should be fine." Then he took out the qi testing disc and went through the process. After inputting spiritual power, the qi testing disc quickly reacted. Red, green, white and yellow light pillars lit up, but before it stabilized, the red and green light pillars disappeared. In the center of the qi testing disc, a blue light pillar that was 6 inches tall rose up, and there were traces of lightning flashing on the light pillar. Wang Daozong was shocked. This is a thunder spiritual root. Wang Daoyuan also didn't react for a while. With Sanhua's appetite, he definitely wasn't an ordinary person. He had expected him to have a spiritual root, but he didn't expect it to be one of the 3 mutated spiritual roots, the thunder spiritual root. Among ordinary people, it could be said that 1 in 10,000 people had a spiritual root. As for cultivators with mutated spiritual roots, it would be an exaggeration to say that 1 in 10,000 people had a mutated spiritual root. Moreover, the thunder spiritual root was undeniably the most destructive of the 9 great elements. It was also extremely effective against evil things. In addition, Sanhua had a special physique. Perhaps he had a special thunder spiritual root. Although his little brother's thunder spiritual root was only 6 inches long and could only be considered above average, with his special physique, his talent could be considered above average. Chapter 77. Wang Fu and Madame Wang Yang had mixed feelings about third baby's spiritual root. They were happy that their youngest son, who had always been a worry to them, could also have a bright future. They were worried that the path of cultivation was not easy. Even second baby, who had been sensible since childhood, was injured. Their youngest son had been reckless since childhood and had no one to take care of him when he left home. After dinner, Wang Daozong had to take the child with the spiritual root back to Jade Spring Peak. Wang Daoyuan also had to go back to report the situation to the patriarch, so they set off together. Madame Wang Yang knew that her 2 sons were about to leave. With tears in her eyes, she kept reminding them to be careful outside and not to starve or freeze. Wang Daoyuan comforted them, "Father, mother, don't worry. With me here, I won't mistreat third baby." Walking to the door, he said to Dahe, "Dahe, are you willing to go to the family's spiritual mountain with me? If you go back with me, you will have a chance to become a second-level spirit beast in the future." Dahe showed a conflicted expression. It looked at its kennel and then at the people at home. After thinking for a long time, it shook its head. Alas. He sighed, took out a storage bag and handed it to Dahe. "Dahe, there are 100 spirit-gathering pills in here. They can improve your cultivation. Become stronger as soon as possible and protect my family for me." Dahe bit the storage bag, nodded and turned back to the kennel. It dug a hole on the brick ground in the corner of the gatehouse and buried the storage bag. It shook its head and wagged its tail to bid farewell to Wang Daoyuan. Seeing Dahe's behavior, everyone was helpless. It had already become a spirit beast, but it still behaved like this. Who would dare to steal its things? Did it need to dig a hole to bury it? A hole had been dug through the ground. Wang Daoyuan untied a bulging storage bag from his waist and handed it to his father, saying, "Father, there are hundreds of kilograms of spiritual grains in here. Eat some often and it can prolong your life. Don't worry and eat. I don't lack these things. After you finish eating, I'll send more to you. Tie the storage bag properly, otherwise it will attract insects and even wild beasts. When you want to eat, ask Dahe to help you untie the storage bag. I've already taught it." The reason why it was put in the storage bag was because the spiritual grains were too attractive to birds, beasts, fish, and insects. If it was directly stored in an ordinary container, it would probably be stolen and eaten up quickly. If a demonic beast was attracted, it would be dangerous. She then said to her eldest brother, "Sanhua and I won't be able to come back often in the future, so I'll leave father and mother to you." Wang Ming nodded and said, "Second brother, third brother, I'm here. Don't worry." Wang Daozong saw that he had prepared the soul-gathering pill for Dahe and said, "It's said that 7th brother is the richest in our generation. You really live up to your reputation." Wang Daoyuan smiled and said, "That was in the past. In the future, I have to support my younger brother. With his appetite, I won't be able to become rich. After bidding farewell to his family and picking up his younger sister, he boarded the ore transport ship of Mount Mirror Iron and left Clear Shi village. In order to prevent the Liang family from discovering any clues, he put Liang Zixing's spirit beast pouch into the space of the spirit pearl. After he cultivated the doppelganger soul nurturing technique, he would carefully investigate the Liang family's background. 5 or 6 days later, Wang Daoyuan and the others changed into a spirit ship to return to Jade Spring Peak at Clearly Market. Because it was empty, and with the help of several family disciples taking turns to drive it, it only took a little more than a day to reach Sleeping Bow Pond. After returning to Jade Spring Peak, Wang Daozong first brought them to the executive hall to report the results of the spirit root test to the head elder. When the head elder saw the 2 children, he smiled so widely that his teeth could be seen. In the past there was often no child with a spirit root, but this year there were 2, which made him overjoyed. The head elder asked kindly, "How are the talents of these 2 little fellows?" Wang Daozong replied, "Sixth granduncle, this younger sister has 3 spirit roots. Her main spirit root is the water spirit root, which is 5 inches and 4 centimeters. This younger brother is Dao Yuan's biological younger brother. He also has 3 spirit roots, and his main spirit root is the thunder spirit root, which is 6 inches and 5 centimeters. The head elder was extremely surprised. "What? Thunder spirit root? And he's Dao Yuan's biological younger brother. If I remember correctly, Dao Yuan's parents are both mortals, right? It's 1 in 1,000 for a mortal couple to give birth to a child with a spirit root, but they actually gave birth to 2? Dao Yuan, are you sure your parents are both mortals?" Wang Daoyuan replied, "They are indeed mortals. My father also had his spirit root tested when he was young. My mother is a member of the Yang clan, so she must have her spirit root tested too. If she has spirit root, it's impossible that it couldn't be tested." The head elder exclaimed, "Then you 2 brothers are really lucky. Your parents are both mortals and you both have spirit roots. This little fellow even has a thunder spirit root, which is more than 6 inches. It's not easy. I'll go make some arrangements. Tomorrow these 2 little fellows will go to the ancestral hall to acknowledge their ancestors." Early the next morning, the 2 little fellows changed into smaller family clothes, walked into the ancestral hall and kowtowed to the ancestral tablets. After that, the head elder gave the 2 little fellows names. The little girl was 12, and was named Wang Daoxian. The 3rd child was 13 and was named Wang Daoyin. Wang Daoyin's name was also meaningful. He had a thunder spirit root, which restrained evil, and the Netherworld sect was the biggest evil. Although the Netherworld sect wouldn't openly kill Wang Daoyin, they wouldn't be happy to see him grow. Thus, it was best for Wang Daoyin to hide his thunder spirit root. Moreover, he was quite jumpy. Giving him this name also warned him to keep a low profile. After naming them, the head elder personally wrote their names into the family tree. Finally, he took a strand of their souls and made it into a soul lamp. If they were alive, the lamp would be lit, and if they were dead, the lamp would be extinguished. The strand of souls taken out was very small, so it didn't cause much damage to the soul. It could be recovered quickly and there wouldn't be any permanent damage. After doing all this, he bowed to the elders present one by one. From then on, the 2 little fellows were officially part of the family. After the ceremony, the 2 little fellows were sent to Wang Jiza to be trained by the old man. Wang Daoyuan wanted to report the matter of Mirror Iron Mountain, so he asked the head elder, "5th great uncle, I have something to report to you about Mirror Iron Mountain. It's a big matter, and I need all the elders to discuss it together." Seeing the solemn expression on his face, Wang Jian knew that the matter wasn't a small one. He immediately summoned all the elders who were still on Jade Spring Peak to the main hall to discuss the matter. All the elders quickly arrived. Wang Jian said, "Daoyuan, all the elders are here. What happened at Mirror Iron Mountain? Tell us about it." Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands and said, Elders, there are 2 reasons for this meeting. The first is that the head elder ordered me to find a way out for the family." He hadn't finished speaking when all the elders began to discuss it. When all the elders quieted down, he continued, "The incident at Mirror Iron Mountain was caused by an evil cultivator. He used a secret soul technique to control the clan members and a few monsters in the mine. He worked together to take down the miners and refine their corpses. I disguised myself as a loose cultivator and entered the mine. That evil cultivator had designs on me, so I pretended to be tricked and was taken to the evil cultivator's lair by the monsters. After a fierce battle, I took down that evil cultivator. That evil cultivator's abode is located next to an underground river that's several hundred feet deep. The entrance is hidden in a stone wall. The abode is about 50 mu in size, and there's even a second-tier low-grade spirit spring inside. All the elders became excited again. Head elder Wang Jiren hurriedly asked, "So that means our Wang family has a secret abode?" Wang Daoyuan replied, "That's indeed the case. That spirit spring is more than enough for an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator to cultivate. There are about 5 to 6 mu of spirit fields in the abode, and there's also a pool. If it's properly renovated, we can open up another 10 mu of spirit fields and raise some spirit fish. It's enough to support an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator and more than 30 qi condensation cultivators." After saying that, he took out a pot of orchids from his space and said, "There's also a kind of mutated orchid in the abode. This one in my hand is one of them. The fragrance of the orchid can restore the power of the divine sense and also increase the cultivation of the divine sense." Chapter 78. There is such a thing? Fourth uncle Wang Shuyuan instantly became interested. As a ling plant farmer, he naturally had to study special ling plants when he saw them. He snatched the orchid and examined it closely. Seventh uncle Wang Shohong also came forward and sniffed hard at the orchid. He said, "The scent of this orchid does have some effect on the soul. It can refresh the mind, increase the cultivation of the consciousness, and also recover the power of the consciousness. Just the effect of recovering the consciousness is far better than the clear spirit pill. As to whether it can heal the wounds of the soul, that's hard to say. Since my soul isn't injured, I can't tell. If it's making dan and seals, smelling this scent can greatly increase the efficiency. In the future we can study if it can be made into dan. Right, Daoyuan, what is the name of this orchid?" Wang Daoyuan responded, "I don't know the name of this orchid. It is different from the orchid species I know. This thing grows beside the ling spring. If it's in a dark place, it can give off a serene blue light. It should be a new species. How about the elders give it a name?" Wang Shuyuan was a little tempted, but he still refused. "Since Daoyuan was the one who discovered it, then you can name it." Wang Daoyuan declined, "I don't know much about ling plants. Fourth uncle, you are a ling plant farmer and know more about this than me. You can name it." To be able to personally name a ling plant was a great honor for a ling plant farmer. He declined again and again, so Wang Shuyuan wasn't polite. "Since Daoyuan has given me this chance, then I will shamelessly name it. This orchid is shaped like a butterfly and can give off a serene blue light. Then let's call it the Jade Butterfly Serene Orchid. What does Daoyuan think?" Wang Daoyuan naturally didn't have any objections. Fourth uncle's name is very appropriate. I have no objections. Finishing, he took out the bead that controlled the formation in the dwelling. This bead is what controls the formation in the dwelling. That formation is not normal. It uses the ling spring as the eye of the formation and the water ling energy from the ling spring as the source of energy. It doesn't need ling stones to operate on its own. Previously, in order to enter the dwelling to investigate, I have already taken it as my master. Now I have removed the ownership and turned it over to the clan. Clan leader Wang Jian waved his hand and said, "No need. It is the same in anyone's hands. Since you found it, it will stay with you. You said you have 2 things to report. What's the other thing?" Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands and said, "Reporting to Patriarch, when I was investigating whether there were any evil cultivators inside Mount Mirror Iron, I also checked the 5 loose cultivators in Mount Mirror Iron. There were no problems with the 3 of them. As for the remaining 2, one was from the Liang family, which I conveniently dealt with. The other was from the Green Willow Island, and his name was Chen Liang. According to Chen Liang, he is the subordinate of a foundation establishment cultivator from the Green Willow state. That foundation establishment cultivator wants to do business with our Wang family. Furthermore, you can use the various resources of the sky/mountain range to exchange for spirit grains, spirit talismans, spirit pills, etc. The location of the transaction will be decided by us. They can send people to our Wang family's territory to get the goods. That Chen Liang is still disguised as a miner at Mirror Iron Mountain. 8th uncle and I don't dare to make the decision, so 8th uncle ordered me to come back and ask for instructions from the Patriarch and the various elders." Wang Jian pondered for a moment and said, "Who else knows about these 2 matters?" Wang Daoyuan replied, 8th uncle and 2nd brother know about the news of people from the Green Willow Island. As for the matter of the cave residents, 8th uncle and 2nd brother are straightforward people. I was afraid they would leak the news, so I didn't tell them." Wang Jian nodded with satisfaction. "You did well. Since the matter of the cave residents hasn't been leaked, then send people to manage it first. The matter of the Green Willow Island isn't urgent. We can slowly discuss it. Dao Yuan has made a great contribution this time. Grand Elder, reward Dao Yuan with 10,000 clan contribution points. In addition, no one is allowed to leak these two matters. Only the clan elders can know. All the elders agreed. The remaining time was for the various elders to discuss whether to trade with the Green Willow Island. Wang Daoyuan wasn't an elder and didn't have the authority to express his opinion. There was no point in staying, so he bid farewell and left. After returning to the cave residence, he opened the cave residence's restriction and began to cultivate the doppelganger soul nurturing technique in seclusion. The doppelganger soul nurturing technique wasn't a simple secret technique. It was a combination of many secret techniques. There was the soul-splitting blade, a soul-nurturing technique, a soul-nurturing technique. The first step to cultivating the doppelganger soul-nurturing technique was to use the power of the soul-splitting blade to condense it. The second step was to use the soul-splitting blade to chop out a part of the soul and simply nurture it to prevent the part from collapsing. Then use the soul-splitting blade to ruthlessly slash the clone, destroying the clone's intelligence and consciousness. Inject the part of the soul into the clone's body and fuse it with the clone's soul. What was left was the soul-nurturing stage. The clone could use the soul-nurturing technique to nurture the part of the soul. The main body could also use the soul-nurturing technique to strengthen the main soul and enhance the cultivation of the divine sense. After nurturing the part of the soul to a certain extent, the main soul would be retrieved and fused with the main soul using the soul fusion technique. The doppelganger soul-nurturing technique in his hands was incomplete in the soul fusion technique. After all, repairing soul damage was an extremely valuable secret technique. It couldn't be taught casually. The 10,000 Corpse Taoist master didn't have a high status in the past and didn't learn the core part of the secret technique. The other shortcomings were completely caused by the 10,000 Corpse Taoist master's lack of a follow-up technique. Unfortunately, the 10,000 Corpse Taoist master had embarked on the wrong path of dividing the soul and controlling the corpse. He didn't continue to repair the doppelganger soul nurturing technique, causing this secret technique to be incomplete. If he could spend a lot of energy and continue to study it, with the knowledge and cultivation of a golden core Taoist master, even if he couldn't restore it, he could still derive it to the golden core realm and make up for the shortcomings of the soul fusion technique. With Wang Daoyuan's cultivation and knowledge, it was impossible for him to derive the technique. He could only cultivate according to the version left by the 10,000 Corpse Taoist master. Perhaps his divine sense was more powerful than the average person's. It only took him half a day to successfully condense the soul-splitting blade. This soul-splitting blade could sever one's own soul and also injure the souls of others. It was a very strong divine sense attack technique. Divine sense attack techniques were extremely rare and only a few big forces had them. Moreover, it wasn't something that ordinary people could learn. These divine sense attack techniques could only be cultivated at the foundation establishment stage. The divine sense and soul of a chi refining cultivator were too weak. If they weren't careful, they might injure themselves. The condensed attack wouldn't be enough to forcibly break through the opponent's sea of consciousness. The cultivation method of the doppelganger soul nurturing technique was to use the doppelganger to nourish the soul. To obtain a doppelganger, one must be able to break through the opponent's sea of consciousness and destroy the opponent's intelligence and consciousness. Therefore, it was necessary to have an extremely powerful divine sense attack technique. Thus, the soul-splitting blade was created. The soul-splitting blade's attack power was extremely strong. The soul-splitting blade condensed by a chi-refining cultivator's divine sense was enough to break through the opponent's sea of consciousness. However, the power and price always corresponded. The greater the power, the greater the price. When a middle chi-refining cultivator cultivated the soul-splitting blade, they would need to consume all of their divine sense to condense it. When they reached the late chi-refining stage, they would also need to consume 70 to 80% of their divine sense. Wang Daoyuan's divine sense power was comparable to the general peak of chi refining, but condensing the soul-splitting blade also consumed more than 60% of his divine sense power. Moreover, if the divine sense cultivation was not as good as the opponent, the soul-splitting blade could not kill the opponent in one blow. It would also cause great damage to the enemy's soul. As a price, one's own soul would also suffer from the backlash. The greater the gap between the two sides' divine sense cultivation, the more serious the backlash. This was the desperate fighting method of exchanging injury for injury. If the doppelganger soul nurturing technique could repair the damage to the soul, then there was no need to care about the damage to the soul. Severely injuring one's own soul in exchange for the opponent's complete destruction, the creator of this secret technique was really ruthless. Unfortunately, the current doppelganger soul nurturing technique couldn't repair the damage to the soul, so he didn't dare to use the secret technique on people whose divine sense cultivation was stronger than his own. Chapter 79. After Wang Daoyuan condensed the soul blade, he decisively slashed at the edge of his soul. The soul of a qi refinement cultivator has not yet formed, and in the sea of consciousness, it is only a human-shaped cloud. Wang Daoyuan's slash cut nearly 1% of the cloud and almost fainted from the pain. This feeling was even more serious than the last time he was hurt by the soul-extinguishing bell. Enduring the pain, he wrapped the soul with the power of divine sense and stabilized it with the soul-nourishing secret technique to prevent it from collapsing automatically. If the soul fragment collapses, Wang Daoyuan's soul will also be left with a wound that cannot be healed by itself. After using the soul-nourishing secret technique for 3 days and 3 nights, the soul fragment stabilized and met the requirements to merge with the avatar. Wang Daoyuan's entire soul entered the space of the spirit pearl and took out Liang Zixing from a spirit beast bag. This guy still had the soul-subduing talisman on his head and was sleeping soundly. Wang Daoyuan didn't want to torture him anymore, it was good to let him die in a daze. Condensing the soul-splitting blade, he directly slashed at Liang Zixing's forehead. Liang Zixing is at the 5th level of qi refinement realm, his divine sense is far worse than Wang Daoyuan's, and he is in a coma, there is no resistance at all. The soul-splitting blade broke through his sea of consciousness and slashed at the soul. The human-shaped cloud in Liang Zixing's sea of consciousness directly dispersed. Wang Daoyuan's soul fragment took the opportunity to enter Liang Zixing's sea of consciousness. The soul-splitting blade turned into pure divine sense power, condensing the scattered cloud with the soul fragment as the core. After the condensation, the soul fragment occupied the part of the human-shaped cloud's forehead. Soon, the soul fragment woke up and began to dominate Liang Zixing's soul and control his body. At this time, more than 200 miles northeast of Qingli City, in a hall on Qingyun Peak, the flame of an oil lamp flickered a few times and was about to go out, then it stabilized and the flame gradually returned to normal. However, no one noticed all this. And that oil lamp has Liang Zixing's name written on it. This is Liang Zixing's soul lamp. After spending a day in the space, the split soul completely took control of the doppelganger. He opened his eyes and looked at the space in the spiritual pearl. At that moment, Wang Daoyuan felt very strange. He felt as if he had been split into two. He was in 2 different places at the same time, seeing 2 different scenes. Furthermore, the flow of time in the 2 places was 20 times faster. If he stayed in this state for too long, it would definitely drive him crazy. Luckily, the host soul could shut off the panoramic sensing of the clones. It could only sense where the clones were and could contact them directly without using the soul consciousness or language. Of course, this kind of connection had a distance limit. He could only guarantee absolute control of the divided soul within 5 kilometers. However, the space of the spirit pearl was a little special. As the owner of the space of the spirit pearl, and the spirit pearl was in his sea of consciousness, the distance between the main soul and the subsoul in the space was 0. If someone else cultivated the doppelganger soul nurturing technique and placed their doppelganger into the spiritual pearl, the distance between their main soul and the doppelganger would be infinitely far. Next, he took out 2 pots of jade butterfly orchid from the space and placed them in the cave. The doppelganger in the space of the spirit pearl also meditated near the jade butterfly orchid. With the help of the fragrance of the jade butterfly orchid, the effect of nourishing the soul was better, and the soul grew faster. In just 3 days, the injury of the soul was stabilized. Although it was impossible to completely recover without merging with the divided soul, at least there was no more pain. Outsiders could not see that his soul was injured. And the doppelganger had the help of the 20 times faster time flow in the space of the spirit pearl. It had already completed the fusion of the divided soul and the original soul of the doppelganger, repairing the damage caused by the soul-splitting blade. The doppelganger Liang Zixing also did chores in the space such as feeding the fish, harvesting and sowing the spirit grains. The doppelganger soul nurturing technique also had a soul-searching effect. After the soul-splitting blade destroyed the doppelganger's intelligence and consciousness, its memory would not disappear. Instead, it would continue to exist in the doppelganger's sea of consciousness. Of course, the memory might be incomplete. After eating the soul-splitting blade, the doppelganger's intelligence and consciousness were obliterated. It was inevitable that the memory would be damaged. After the divided soul merged with the soul, it could pry into the doppelganger's previous memories. Wang Daoyuan naturally would not give up this great opportunity to pry into the secrets of the Liang clan. The divided soul had been prying into Liang Zixing's memories these days while doing chores. This method of prying into memories was a bit like watching a movie in his previous life. The doppelganger's previous experiences would be shown one by one. Fortunately, Liang Zixing was still a virgin. Otherwise, this prying into memories would be more awkward. Through this method, Wang Daoyuan understood that Liang Zixing was not a dispensable person in the Liang clan. He was the son of a foundation establishment elder in the Liang clan. This elder had 2 sons who were cultivators. The other was a complete waste. Only this son was passable. He had 3 spirit roots, and his main spirit root was the 6-inch 9-part fire spirit root. His talent was not bad, but it was not the best either. He was not ranked in the top few in the Liang clan. In terms of status, the Liang clan had 6 or 7 foundation establishment cultivators. Above this elder were the clan leader, the grand elder, and a few ordinary elders. He was not ranked. With Liang in the Liang clan, it was not difficult to get a foundation establishment pill from the Netherworld sect. However, the Liang clan had several foundation establishment cultivators, so it was impossible for them to give the foundation establishment pill to Liang Zixing. This elder did not want his descendant to sink like this. Therefore he found a dangerous job for Liang Zixing, which was to go undercover in the Mirror Iron Mountain. In the future they would work together to seize the Mirror Iron Mountain. With this contribution, they might be qualified to fight for the foundation establishment pill. The Liang clan had always wanted to annex the Wang clan for many reasons. Factional disputes were one of them, but it was not the main reason. The reason Liang hated the Wang clan was that when he was still an itinerant cultivator, he had a few good friends who eventually joined the Cruel Sun Palace. When the 3 sects rebelled, the Wang clan's patriarch Wang Qingzu killed the cultivators of the Cruel Sun Palace. 2 of Liang's good friends were also killed. Therefore Liang hated the Wang clan. Later the Wang clan joined the Yang clan's patriarch Yang Yong in order to protect themselves. Liang had a grudge with Yang Yong to begin with, so he disliked the Wang clan even more. Furthermore, the Wang clan had one of the best spirit veins in Qingli County. Although it had fallen to superior grade 3, it was still a middle grade 4 spirit vein, and there was still a chance for it to recover in the future. Jade Spring Peak was a spirit vein that could be used as the foundation of a golden core family. Be it in terms of scale or grade, it was several streets ahead of the Liang clan's Blue Cloud Peak. With these reasons, as well as the Liang clan's unreasonable and forceful style, it wasn't strange that they wanted to destroy the Wang clan. Wang Daoyuan also discovered another secret from Liang Zixing's memories. The Liang clan's patriarch had dealings with the Cruel Sun Palace. Liang's good friends who joined the Cruel Sun Palace did not die, and one of them even became a Purple Mansion elder. Furthermore, that Cruel Sun Palace elder had always been in contact with Liang. Recently, there was also the matter of the 2 sects joining forces to attack the Netherworld sect. Therefore the Liang clan wanted to leave a way out. However, the Liang clan's territory was surrounded by the Wang, Yang and Meng clans, and they did not even have room for development, let alone a way out. Therefore Liang secretly thought of colluding with the Cruel Sun Palace. Of course Liang was not a fool. He only hinted to the Cruel Sun Palace elder that he had this intention and did not actually take action. Only the Liang clan's patriarch and a few elders knew about this matter. Liang Zixing had only heard his father mention it by chance. When Wang Daoyuan learned of this secret, he really wanted to send Liang Zixing back to the Liang clan as a spy to find irrefutable evidence of the Liang clan colluding with the Cruel Sun Palace and then expose the Liang clan. However, he could only think about it. If the doppelganger soul nurturing technique could repair the damage to the soul, he would dare to do so. Now that the doppelganger soul nurturing technique did not have this ability, once Liang Zixing was killed, Wang Daoyuan's split soul would not be able to escape. Before finding a spirit item that could repair the damage to the soul, Wang Daoyuan definitely did not dare to take this risk. Chapter 80. Wang Daoyuan also peeked at Liang Zixing's cultivation method and magic arts. Unfortunately, this kid didn't cultivate any powerful techniques. Because he wasn't a foundation establishment seed of the Liang clan, he only cultivated the most common fire attribute technique, the Li Fire art. This technique was already common. However, the spells that Liang Zixing cultivated were quite interesting. He was at the 5th stage of Qi condensation, but when he entered the Mirror Iron Mountain he only appeared to be at the 2nd stage. The reason was that he had cultivated a spell called the Breath Concealing Technique. This spell was not very advanced, but it could hide one's spirit Qi fluctuations. It could only deceive Qi refinement cultivators, but foundation establishment cultivators had strong divine senses and could not be deceived. In addition, there was also a technique called Appearance Changing Technique. It could change one's appearance. It should have originated from the mortal world and was later improved by cultivators. The disguise technique was divided into two types, one with spiritual energy and the other without spiritual energy. Without spirit power, one could change one's appearance by adjusting the position of one's facial muscles. The change wouldn't be large and the change to one's figure would be even smaller. By using spiritual power, one could completely disguise one's body. Wang Daoyuan judged that it came from the mortal world based on the fact that it could be cast without the use of spiritual energy. Without spirit power, there was no need to worry about magic arts being able to see through the disguise technique. Unless the opponent was a Zifu realm cultivator and could directly peek into the soul, they wouldn't be able to see one's true appearance. If one used spirit power, one's body would have obvious spirit power fluctuations. This was clearly telling the opponent that one was using a disguise technique. Unless one's spiritual sense was far stronger than the opponent's, they could use the power of their spiritual sense to conceal the spirit power fluctuations. Generally speaking, using spirit power was more suitable for dealing with opponents with weak spiritual senses. Not using spirit power was more suitable for hiding in front of experts. With these two techniques, Wang Daoyuan could try to sneak into the oasis and sell spirit talismans and spirit grains there without worrying about implicating the Wang clan. In addition to the aura concealing technique and appearance-changing technique, there were also some fire attribute techniques that were useless against Wang Daoyuan. Ever since he captured Qi Yun, he had been busy and forgot to check Qi Yun's storage pouch. At that time he was in a hurry to find the doppelganger soul nurturing technique, so he only took out the bead that controlled the array from his storage bag. He didn't check what was inside. As a peak foundation establishment cultivator, how could Qi Yun not have anything good in his storage bag? Wang Daoyuan opened Qi Yun's storage pouch. Inside there were 3 jade slips and a few mid-grade spirit stones. He was somewhat disappointed. A grand peak foundation establishment cultivator only has this much. How embarrassing. But after thinking about it, he understood. Qi Yun was being hunted down like a grandson. If he had any good items, he would have already used them to save his life. Why would he keep them? Next he checked the 3 jade slips. The first jade slip was the cultivation technique that Qi Yun had cultivated before he received the inheritance, the Gold Fury art. It could be cultivated up to the Violet Palace realm. The Golden Ferocious art nurtured baleful aura through slaughter. Using the baleful aura to fight against the enemy would not only harm the physical body but also the soul. Its lethality was above that of the metal-attributed spiritual energy. It was an extremely domineering cultivation technique. It seemed that this Qi Yun was not a kind person. He cultivated by killing. Who knew how many lives he had taken? If he had not coincidentally broken the sound wave attack, he probably would have died at his hands as well. The second jade slip was trash. It recorded the secret technique of Qi Yun spitting out corrosive black smoke and needle-shaped magic tools during his battle with Wang Daoyuan. This thing required corpse Qi and baleful aura to cultivate. Hiding corpse Qi in one's stomach was disgusting. It was better to throw it aside. The third jade slip made Wang Daoyuan overjoyed. It recorded the knowledge of formations. Qi Yun was a second-grade formation master. The formations in the secret cave were created by him. This jade slip recorded the basic knowledge of formations and dozens of formations. Among them there were more than 10 second-grade formations. Apart from that, this jade slip also recorded Qi Yun's insights into formations. This was the complete inheritance of an upper-grade Tier 2 array master. Moreover, it contained more insights than an ordinary array master's inheritance. These insights could help beginners to master array masters faster. The Wang family needed a formation master to rebuild the family's protective formation and repair the chasing wave boat. However, the formation inheritance was not important to the Wang family. It was too difficult to nurture a formation master. That was because the market demand for formations was very small. Moreover, the factions that set up formations would look for famous formation masters. Therefore, formation masters who were not famous would not be able to generate any income for a long time. They could only rely on the family to support them. Moreover, it was very likely that formation masters would die of old age before they could generate any income. This was not a price that a foundation establishment family could afford. Even Zifu family clans generally did not nurture formation masters. Therefore, this formation inheritance was not very useful to the Wang family. However, Wang Daoyuan could learn it. However, he would not learn it himself. He would let his clone learn it. With the help of space and time flowing 20 times faster, even a pig would have some achievements. In the future, when the clone and main soul merged, he would be able to inherit what the clone had learned. Of course, what the clone had learned through the clone was not fully inherited by the main soul. However, when he learned formations in the future, he would already know all the techniques and tricks before he started. The only thing he lacked was practical operation. With a little practice he would be able to grasp it very well. If Wang Daoyuan could refine the body that Qi Yun had taken over into a clone, he would probably only need a very short time to become a second-stage formation master. This was the effect of prying into other people's memories. Of course, it was also possible that he would not learn anything after prying into other people's memories. Success was 99% sweat and 1% inspiration. Prying into the clone's memories and then merging the clone with the main soul only saved 99% of the sweat. Without that 1% inspiration he might not learn anything. After all, even if he taught hand to hand, there were still people who could not be taught. Moreover, prying into other people's memories was equivalent to watching teaching videos. In addition, because the clone's soul had been heavily injured, its cultivation and learning of the various arts of cultivation were much slower than ordinary people. There was no problem in learning the basics. It was not reliable to expect the clone to have high attainments. It was only used to accumulate experience. Even if refining Qi Yun into a clone had great benefits, Wang Daoyuan did not dare to make a move at this time. He didn't know what Qi Yun's current situation was, but if his spiritual energy was stronger than his, then even if the soul-splitting blade could cut through Qi Yun's consciousness and spirit, his soul would suffer irreparable damage. He didn't dare take such a risk. Wang Daoyuan helplessly said to himself, taking care of Qi Yun and Liang Zixing and sneaking back to the Liang family to gather information. These two important matters were delayed because I was afraid of damaging my soul. Why couldn't the 10,000 Corpse spiritual master properly deduce the soul-merging secret technique? It was impossible for him to deduce it himself. Without knowledge and cultivation, he could only hope to find a spirit medicine to repair the damage to his soul. Of Qi Yun's belongings, only the Golden Fury art and the formation inheritance could be handed over to the family. He would keep the rest for himself. However, he had to leave behind a copy of the formation inheritance. After putting away Qi Yun's belongings, Wang Daoyuan took out Liang Zixing's storage bag. This was relatively shabby. There was only a first-rank mid-grade fire attribute sword, some spirit grains and a few spirit stones inside. After all, Liang Zixing was going undercover and disguised as a second-level Qi disciple. If he brought too many things, it would be easy for him to be exposed. If this kid had not tried to strike up a conversation with him and acted more like a rogue cultivator, Wang Daoyuan would not have suspected him. The consequences could have been very serious. Chapter 81. He hadn't eaten anything after so many days of closed-door cultivation. Now that he was done, he felt hungry. His spiritual awareness entered the space of the spiritual bead to see if there was anything delicious. The fiery sun wood and golden silk spirit jujube had been planted for more than a month. According to the time in the space, it had been more than 2 years. The fiery sunwood had already begun to flower and bear seeds. Now there was a third generation of fiery sunwood sapling. The sapling of the golden silk spirit jujube was indeed fine. It had grown to the height of a person and the thickness of an arm. Although ordinary jujube trees could bear fruit when they sprouted, the golden silk spirit jujube was obviously not the same. It still hadn't bloomed and bore fruit. However, this was normal. After all, it was a rare and valuable spiritual plant. How could it bear fruit so easily? The 5 lotus seeds planted had successfully sprouted and grown. However, they had grown in the space for more than 2 years and still hadn't bloomed. This was definitely not blackwater lotus. Blackwater lotus was a spiritual plant of the lower grade of the first level. With sufficient spiritual energy, it could bloom and bear fruit in a year. In the space of the spiritual bead, there were spiritual fields of the lower grade of the second level. In 2 years it should be 2 seasons long. Like blackwater lotus but not blackwater lotus, it could really be black jade lotus. It didn't take up much space, so he just let it grow. The spiritual wheat transplanted in the underground cave residence had been multiplied for several generations in the space of the spiritual bead. At first there were only a few stalks. Wang Daoyuan sowed all the harvested spiritual wheat as seeds. After several generations of reproduction, the scale was not small. He changed the 1 mu of spiritual grains in the space to spiritual wheat. The growth period of spiritual wheat was slightly longer than that of spiritual grains. But with a time acceleration of 20 times, it only took 5 days to harvest. The output of spiritual wheat was also slightly higher than that of spiritual grains. In the outside world, spiritual grains produced 200 caddies per mu. There were no pests in the space and there were soul-chasing bees to help pollinate. The output of spiritual wheat was estimated to be more than 300 caddies per mu. In addition to keeping 20 caddies of spiritual wheat as seeds, there were still 50 to 60 caddies of spiritual wheat that could be eaten. Wang Daoyuan ordered his clone to grind all the 50 to 60 caddies of spiritual wheat into flour and then roll it into dumpling wrappers. Unfortunately, there was only fish meat in the space, so he could only eat fish dumplings. The filling of the dumplings was only fish meat with salt, and there were no other vegetables. Even so, Wang Daoyuan still ate until tears streamed down his face. After 20 years, I finally get to eat dumplings again. Although the meat filling is a little lacking, it's still dumplings. The next time I go out, I must collect some vegetables and plant them in the space. At the very least, I need scallions, ginger, and garlic. I also need to raise a few pigs and sheep. I really can't get used to the taste of fish dumplings. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, he remembered that his little brother had already been in the clan for a few days. There was a limit to the amount of resources the family gave to the underage disciples. Her younger brother's situation was special. The family had never encountered such a situation before, so there was no special provision. It was still distributed according to the amount of spirit grains given to normal underage disciples. He was probably starving to death. After all, he was her younger brother. She didn't lack food. She couldn't just watch him starve. He had his doppelganger knead the dough, roll out the dumpling skin, and wrap more than 10 kilograms of dumplings. He cooked all of them and sent them to his younger brother. Although his younger brother couldn't eat that much, his great-grandfather still had a few younger brothers and sisters. He couldn't let his younger brother eat dumplings while the other younger brothers and sisters watched. Besides, he had to let his great-grandfather have a taste of the new food that he had created. Wang Daoyuan packed the dumplings in a food box and went straight to the library tower. The underage disciples in the clan spent most of their time in the Tripitaka Tower, practicing cultivation techniques, dharma spells, and reading the books in the tower. When he arrived near the library tower, he saw Wang Daoyuan eating the spirit grains pitifully. It was obvious that he hadn't eaten enough in the past few days. Wang Daoyuan almost burst into tears when he saw his second brother coming with the food box. He ate half a bowl of spirit grains in one gulp and rushed to Wang Daoyuan. When he arrived in front of Wang Daoyuan, he couldn't wait to open the food box. When he saw the dumplings, he asked curiously, "Brother, what's this? Is it edible?" Wang Daoyuan smiled and said, "Of course it's edible. It's a new food that I just created." When he heard Wang Daoyuan say it was edible, Wang Daoyuan immediately picked up a pair of chopsticks to pick up the dumplings. Wang Daoyuan patted his head and said, "If you have something good, give it to your elders first. Don't be so casual in the clan. You have to know how to respect your elders, okay?" Wang Daoyuan nodded and took the food box. He ran to his great-grandfather, Wang Jiza, who was sitting under the pine tree. Wang Jiza was also curious when he saw the dumplings and asked, "Daoyuan, what's this?" Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands and said, "Great-grandfather, these are dumplings. They're a new food that I created." Wang Jiza picked up his chopsticks and tasted one. He said, "These dumplings are really good. How did you make them?" "Great-grandfather." Wang Daoyuan replied, "The skin of the dumplings is made from spirit grains and the filling is made from fish. It's a pity that I didn't have any seasoning, so I could only make them like this." Wang Jiza nodded and said, "It's already very good that you can make them like this with simple ingredients. You've been a glutton since you were young, but you're also smart and know how to cook." At this moment, a woman in a white dress came out of the hidden scripture tower and asked, "What did seventh brother make this time?" Wang Daoyuan saw her and said with a smile, "I created a new food called dumplings. Eight sister, you're just in time. Come and try it." This woman was called Wang Daoshu. She was ranked 8th and was still underage. However, the clan was short of manpower, so she was also sent to the Drunken Immortal restaurant to learn cooking. Seventh brother's food has always been delicious. I have to eat more. Wang Daoshu smiled. She tasted a dumpling and said, "This taste is really good. I can sell it at the Drunken Immortal restaurant. Seventh brother, teach me how to make dumplings. If I sell dumplings at the Drunken Immortal restaurant, my business will definitely be good." Wang Daoyuan said with a smile, "It's not difficult. Grind spirit grains into powder, add water and mix it into dough, then roll it into pieces. This is how to make the dumpling skin. Use the meat of spirit beasts or spirit fish, add some vegetables and seasonings, and mince it into minced meat. This is how to make the dumpling filling. Finally, use the dumpling skin to wrap the filling and pinch the sides to make the dumplings. There are many ways to make the dumpling filling, and it's also possible to use vegetables. As for how to eat it, you can steam it, boil it, fry it, or fry it. "Eight sister, you're so smart. It's easy for you to learn such a simple thing." Wang Daoshu immediately smiled when she heard her seventh brother praising her intelligence. "Seventh brother, you really know how to talk. These dumplings are also very delicious. Can I eat more?" "Eat as much as you want," Wang Daoyuan said with a smile. "I prepared more than 10 kilograms of dumplings this time. I'm sure great-grandfather and my brothers and sisters can eat until they're full." Wang Daoyin was happy when she heard that she could eat until she was full. She picked up a big bowl and said, "Second brother, I haven't eaten until now." Wang Daoyuan said with a smile, "Who told you to eat so much? Even if I set aside an acre of spirit land to feed you, you can't eat until you're full every meal. Remember, when you enter the family, you have to call me seventh brother according to the ranking in the family." All the brothers and sisters also took a bowl of rice. Wang Daoyuan also filled a bowl for great-grandfather Wang Jiza. Then Wang Daoyuan took out a storage bag and handed it to Wang Daoyin. He said, "This is 500 kilograms of spirit grains. Eat slowly. I still have the ability to let you eat until you're full. You're more talented than me. Cultivate well at great-grandfather's place. Don't waste such good talent." He said goodbye to great-grandfather and his brother and returned to his cave residence to prepare for leaving the mountain. After the patriarch and the elders finished their discussion, he should leave Jade Spring Peak and contact the people of Green Willow Province. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.